Welcome back to the National Pastime. I'm Nash.
I'm Aaron.
Yeah, and I'm not dead, as you probably guessed. Not only am I not dead, I got a brand new face and way shorter hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, it all got cut off. The brand new face thing, that's a real thing too, and I will tell you about that this time.
I think I might have heard a little about it.
Did you?
Yeah. From your blog. Read about it.
You cheater. Yeah, I guess. I mean, obviously, I don't want people to know about it. I wouldn't post it, but pretend like you don't know anything. You probably know a lot of what we're going to talk about then. But yeah, that happened. Regarding the hair, that was right when I got back to the States. After escaping South America, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna shorten my hair a little bit because it was getting crazy. Like it weighed a lot. Like dreadlocks down to your waist. Really,
it's a lot of hair.
They're really sealing the flavor. Like you take a shower and then it takes like 36 hours to dry.
Yeah.
And yeah, you got to do like a martial arts move, like a spin kick or something, and they fly around and whip you in the eyeballs, get stuck in other people's armpits. It's a huge hassle. So I was like, all right, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to cut this down to like shoulder length. So I cut it down to shoulder length, and I picked it all out. It took me 8 hours. Grueling hours because I was ripping out like a lot of my hair, and I finally got it all picked out, and I was like, yeah, I like this. Like, I don't want to pat my own horn on the back, but this is some good looking hair. It looked like a Kurt Russell character, like Snake from Escape from New York. So I was like, yeah, looking good. I'm just gonna go get this touched up by a professional here. So keep in mind, I had like shoulder length hair, and so I was like, I don't know where to go. Like I haven't had a haircut in over 7 years. I'll just pop into this Great Clips real quick.
I was going to say, don't tell me went to Great Clips.
That's what everybody says. So I just pop into Great Clips. The place is a ghost town, which should have been my first sign. Kind of like when you go to a restaurant that's completely empty, except maybe like, someone has diarrhea in the bathroom. You're like, I'll eat here. So I was there, and I was like, no one is here. And they're like, can I help you? And I was like, yeah, I want to get some of my hairs trimmed, please. And this lady was like, yeah, cool, let's do it. So I sat in the chair, and she's like, what do you want? And I was like, all right, I want exactly what I have now. Exactly this. What's going on? Just take a 1/4 inch off. A 1/4 inch. And she was like, sure, no problem. So she was like touching it with her hand and like motioning and like explaining to me what I just explained to her, and I was like, you got it. That's right. And then she pulled it all up in her hand and cut it all off. Like in one fell swoop. She pulled it up like a top knot. It was just like, slice! I was like, oh! Like in my head, I was like, you do realize a 1/4 inch is 1/4 of an inch and not 4 inches, right? And then as she's just completely just trailblazing my head, she was like, yeah, I just graduated high school. Wait a minute. Did you used to teach high school? And I was like, yes, I did. And she's like, yeah, I think you were one of my teachers. And I was like, all right, that explains this whole situation. Like, the high school that she graduated from, of course, and that explains why you don't know what a 1/4 inch is. And, yeah, and I was just like, man, is that why they paid me $9 an hour? Because you're like this? Or are you like this because they paid me $9 an hour? Did I do this to you?
Could be a bit of both.
Is this some kind of like, karmic full circle retribution where I sowed the seeds to this haircut like years prior by ruining your mind? But, yeah, wound up looking real good, I think.
Yeah.
Like, in her defense, let's give her the benefit of the doubt and say she knew exactly what she was doing. And I was just like, I want this haircut. And then in her mind, she was like, you look terrible. Why don't I just give you a haircut? You'll look fine. And it could have been that. But shut up and take my order. I don't care about your input. If I want to look terrible, then I'll look terrible. But, yeah, and then later that day, so that was like the week I got back to the States from escaping South America. And escape is what it was. But I got back and I went back to the fighting gym. And the boxing tournament, the Golden Gloves, are going on right now. So they needed people to help set up the boxing ring. So I went with my fighting gym to help set it up. So it was that morning that I got my haircut, and then like a couple hours later, I went to help set up the boxing ring, but no one knew that this was going to happen. So I just drove up and rolled down the window, and I was like, where should I park? And they were like, whoa, with the other CEOs, you douchebag corporate sellout, where's your BMW? And Like, yeah, this isn't what I asked for, but this is me now. But the real funny thing though was like there's like a really old guy who's in charge of the boxing tournament. He's like, I don't know, 75 or whatever. I mean, this other guy from the fighting gym are carrying tables for him, and he's like dictating to us where to put the tables. So we're setting up the tables for him, and he's like, so you guys like box? And I'm like, oh no, I don't really box. Like I'll train in boxing, but I'm not like a boxer. I do martial arts and MMA, and occasionally I'll have a kickboxing fight or an MMA, like a cage fight. And he's like, whoa, you can't be doing like MMA and full contact fighting. And I was like, well, why? And he's like, well, I'm not gay or anything, but you're way too good looking to be fighting. You know, I mean, I'm not gay. I'm just saying, like, you could be like a model, like you should be like a male model. I'm not gay or anything. Like, he just kept like reiterating. But then, like,
I bet you look real good, some Calvin Klein undies.
Yeah, like that's, and that was just it. Like he kept and then like the head coach and the owner of the fighting gym that I train at, like he was there. Like, doesn't Nash look like he could be a male model? You shouldn't be letting this guy bang around. And like he's not the type. He's just like, where do these tables go? Like he's just. But the whole time I was like, man, okay, number one, super flattering, and number two, is that why I'm not getting any of these gigs? Because I'm aiming for the wrong target demographic? Like, I think 75-year-old men is where I should be aiming for now. Like, do the AARP, like, calendar shoot. Like, just, like, doing, like the firefighters catalog, but it's for, like, extremely old people. And I'll just do, like, I was just like, I'm not gay or anything. I'm like, look, man, I'm not gay either, but you seem like you got a lot of money. I'm sure we could work something out. Like, whose windowless van do I have to get in? Like, whose basement photo shoot am I going to? What do you need from me? We can do this. And so, yeah, like, then me and my buddies later on just kept, like, jokingly taking it to further extremes. Like, I'm not gay or anything, but, the things I would do to you. Oh.
I'm not gay or anything, but I am so hard right now.
Yeah. That's from you. I got this erection from you. Thank you. I haven't had an erection in 30 years. I'm not gay or anything. It's just, oh my God, you look amazing. Can I touch your face? Yeah, so that was nice. So yeah, that's encouraged me to go to more auditions and really bet my baby blacks at.
Maybe it was the haircut.
It's 100% the haircut, like. Because the guy I was stacking tables with was like, yeah, he looks good now, but, you know, he was thinking about maybe growing his hair out and getting some facial hair, you know, wouldn't that mess the whole thing up? And the guy's like, oh, yeah, he would look terrible. It's like, yep, that was me literally, like, 2 hours ago, so. But, yeah, that was pretty funny. So what have you been up to in the past couple of months?
Been helping last few weeks, actually, been at my parents' house and helping them move a bunch of crap out of their house because they're getting new carpet put in.
Oh, God. I hate all those things you just said. I hate carpet.
So, moving a bunch of furniture and just, they have way too much shit. Having to clear out, like, 2 different bedrooms.
Right.
Basically, it was the bedrooms when me and my sister lived there. Those were our bedrooms, but now they've been converted into basically, like, their, like, a guest room and then, like an office.
Oh, yeah.
But then my dad hurt his shoulder and is actually going to be getting surgery. Like, he has, like, a torn rotator cuff.
Nice.
So he's going to be getting surgery done here in a couple of weeks, I think on the 12th or 13th. So he can't really lift stuff. He can only, like, basically use one arm.
Right. That's all I would need.
And so, yeah, I've been able to do most of the lifting and carrying stuff around.
You're doing like 2-man jobs. He's like, can you help me move this couch? And by that I mean, can you move this couch up these stairs by yourself? That's kind of
what some of his is. Basically just kind of like dragging it through the house by myself because it's too heavy to like actually lift.
Put this freezer downstairs. Like, this is a 9-person job, Dad. Please help.
Like, oh God, the worst thing was that I guess it belonged to my dad's mother's mother, so my great grandmother.
Okay.
A giant like cedar chest.
Oh yeah, those are nice.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's really old, and it's really fucking heavy.
Yeah, yeah.
When it's really well made.
Yeah, when they make stuff out of real wood, it's everything's real heavy. Like, yeah, go open one of those old doors, like that look like a modern door, but they're made of like solid oak. Yeah, you go to like open them and you're like, "Argh!"
Yeah. The door's like 200 pounds.
Yeah, because you got to take it off the hinges for something. You're like, sure, no problem. Just pop this off the hinges, and you're like, oh Jesus Christ! Yeah, you're like, well, it's that's where it lives now. We're gonna need to hire a crew to put this door back on because it's super heavy.
But yeah, so that this trunk is probably, I'm guessing, maybe 4 feet long.
Okay.
And like 2.5, 3 feet wide.
All right.
And then like about 2 feet tall. But yeah, it was and it's full of like
blankets. I want to guess. Is it blankets? I want 3 guesses.
Okay.
All right. There are blankets.
There are a couple blankets in it.
Okay, but that's not the totality of it. Magazines.
There's a couple newspapers in it.
Okay. So periodicals and blankets. Man, you're just all over the board. I guess I'm technically 2 for 2, but that makes the third one that much more confusing. A lamp.
No.
Caught on a limb.
It's primarily stuff my mom has kept.
Okay.
But it's like primarily stuff from like me and my sister when we were kids. So it has like baby blankets.
Right.
And then has like a few like newspapers of like historical events.
Sure.
But then it's primarily just like photo albums and like keepsake kind of stuff.
I've got a newspaper from when the very first Spider-Man movie came out in theaters.
I can say that one's not in there.
Well, she's missing out. What kind of history is she?
So like had something in there with when the Berlin Wall came down.
Boring.
And I know that there was the like when Obama got elected president.
Not a big deal.
I forget what the other one. I didn't really look through them. But yeah, basically I was moving that by myself, like basically just dragging one end of it,
just destroying the floor and the chest and your back.
The chest was fine, and then it's basically dragging it through the carpets being replaced, so they didn't care.
Oh, you know what? Actually, thinking about what you just said about like Obama and the Berlin Wall. So I was thinking about that Spider-Man movie, and I was like, oh, that stuff's boring because it's not movies. And then I thought, wouldn't it be neat if like Michael Bay or James Cameron made a movie about the Berlin Wall coming down, but it was just like super historically inaccurate, like it's like, you know, like Transformers knocking down a huge wall, and that's the Berlin Wall. Which then made me think, on a side tangent, I saw in South America, I rode like 8 24-hour buses, which we'll get into next week when I talk about why I had to
escape.
Yes, why I had to escape via 8 24-hour buses. But they were pretty nice buses. Nothing like in India or Nepal. They've got toilets, like real toilets, and televisions and stuff to like watch movies on.
Yeah, so it's like actual like normal like charter bus kind
yes,
of thing.
Yeah, pretty nice. Actually nicer than any bus I've ridden in the States by far. Which is pretty cool. But one of the movies that I was forced to watch was Tom Cruise's The Mummy.
Oh, yeah.
Which I had heard was an absolute shit show. Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it because I heard it was awful.
Yeah, I heard it was awful, and I'm a huge fan of Brendan Fraser's The Mummy. Yeah. So I'd never seen it, and I was like, oh, I just heard it was just a terrible movie, so I never watched it. But I'm somewhat happy to report, or disappointed to report, that it's nowhere near as bad as people made it out to be.
And I figured that was probably the case, but they're just like saying it's not as good as like we were all
hoping. It's definitely not. And here's the really sad thing, though, is that like buried deep within this movie are like pieces and hints of like another actually interesting good movie that just don't have anything to do with mummies or
and I know
Russell Crowe.
It was supposed to be like Universal Pictures was supposed to be using The Mummy to start this.
Yeah, it was supposed to launch their dark universe.
Yeah,
and like so Russell Crowe was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and like shoehorning in all these Dracula, Black Lagoon, Wolfmen, and that really just destroyed the whole movie. But at the beginning of the movie, like Tom Cruise is, ironically, everyone was like, yeah, Tom Cruise's character is one of the worst parts of the movie, and he's the star. Ironically, his is that yeah, this Tom Cruise character over here. Just ruining the movies.
It's a real Bronxy.
Yeah. You think you're tough because you're riding a collapsing building, eh? Well, yeah. You think you're a real tough guy because you're in a plane that's flying and then it crashes down and you're inside of it the whole time. You ain't tough.
Better than me?
Yeah, you think you're better than me because you're riding some plane that's crashing into a building and you ride that building. You're not better than me because you're some mummy curse.
Forget about it.
Get out of here with your mummy curse. But no, like I actually found his character. And, like, his character kind of arc to be the best part of the movie. Like, I really just want to watch a movie about the guy that he was playing. And him and some other guy are supposed to be friends. And they're, like, contracted by the military to do intelligence recon about where these bases are. But really, that's just a front. And they're just using their military post to, like, go steal.
Explore places.
No, they're just, like, stealing cultural artifacts and then selling them on the black market. But they're artifacts that were going to get destroyed by, like, you know, terrorist organizations. So, and Tom Cruise even used my phrase, which now I'm going to get associated with his character, but he stole it from me because his buddy was like, "Oh man, we can't be doing this. We're going to get court-martialed for stealing artifacts." And he's like, "We're not stealing the artifacts. We're liberating precious antiquities." I was like, "I say that. You can't say that. Now everybody's going to think I stole it from their shit movie." But yeah, he's really, and like he winds up like. He has this map, this like treasure map to this lost city, and then you find out that he got the map because he tracked this like archaeologist that he like had sex with to get to the map, and then like he just like while she was asleep, he just took the map and left. Like the whole thing was a front to get to the treasure map. So he just like seduced this lady, but then she tracks him down at the military base and like exposes him as this giant douchebag. But everyone already knows he's a giant douchebag, and the whole thing is that he's just like a douchey treasure hunter, and I just want to watch a movie about Tom Cruise's douchey treasure hunter. And then like later on when they wake up the mummy and then the mummy's coming after him and they're riding this plane that Tom Cruise is always doing his own stunts, and like he actually rode a collapsing building's roof and like actually was like in this plane that was going down. But like the way that it's shot, you can't even tell that all these things actually happen. Like they could have saved like $1 billion and just done CG with everything. Because the way the cinematography is, it looks like it's all CG anyway, but it's actually real, which is crazy. But yeah, he's in this plane and it's going down, and there's like the lady in it, and that's accusing him of like, you know, being such a douche. And then so he takes the last parachute and gives it to her, and like pulls the cord, and like she goes out to safety, and then he goes down with the plane, but he doesn't die. Spoiler alert, because he's been cursed by the mummy to be immortal. But yeah, and it's actually got some funny things. Like, did you ever see American Werewolf in London?
Yeah. Okay,
you know how he turns into the werewolf and then he murders his friend, and then he's haunted by his friend's comedic ghost that's all rotten and stuff? The same thing happens in this movie. Tom Cruise's friend gets cursed by the mummy and turns into a zombie and like kills their commanding officer. So Tom Cruise kills his friend, and then when Tom Cruise dies and comes back to life as an unkillable guy, he's like haunted by the rotting corpse of his friend, who he keeps having arguments and stuff with. And it's like, it's funny and like good. Like there's pieces of a good movie in here. It's just all the other shoehorned in universe building shit like totally ruined it. But yeah, later on you find out that the lady's like defending Tom Cruise's character. She's like, "Yeah, I thought you were like the worst guy who like didn't have a conscience and all this stuff, but you know, when it really came down to it, you saved me because you gave me the last parachute." And Tom Cruise is like, "Yeah, I thought there was another one." Like, just like so funny. That's all. It's just the whole thing made me think of that movie.
It's like, yeah, I didn't know that was the last
yeah, he's
one.
like, "Yeah, I just thought there was another parachute." Like he's just a
they would have two on
yeah,
board.
just a douchey treasure hunting guy through and through, and I want to see more of that. That is all. That just there's like a segue in my mind when you talk about.
Let me actually go watch the movie then.
Yeah, give it a go. Yeah, it's got a cool thing where like it ends sort of cyclically to how it began in like a nice sort of way. But it's just all the shit that's in the middle. It's like before they find the mummy, it's a good movie, and they find this mummy and it turns into a shit show. And then once they defeat the mummy, the last 2 seconds are like back to like a good movie. It's really weird. But that is all. All right, so you were moving stuff for your parents? Is that?
Yeah,
is that it?
moving stuff for them. Like I mentioned to you before about buying a new video card and paying a ridiculous amount of money for it.
Yeah.
Because video card prices are stupid high right now.
That's right.
And, that basically video card prices almost across the board are anywhere from 30 to 50% higher than they were 6 months ago.
Wow, that high.
Yeah.
In
now,
just 6 months.
On the plus side,
can you like sell your...
yes.
Okay.
There is a thriving secondhand market.
Nice.
Because buying new video cards right now is so expensive.
Yeah.
So basically the one I bought 3 months ago was like $800.
Okay.
3 months before that was like $700. Now, today,
right.
it's on their website for like $1,059. I bought it for like just under $1,000.
Right.
But the previous video card I had, I can pretty reliably sell for like $350.
No reason to let this cookie go to waste here. Go on.
Which is what I paid for it when I bought it. So basically, like,
nice.
I'm essentially getting that video card for free. So when you look at it that way, it's like, okay, well, then that's why I was looking at, like, well, the new card, I buy it, like, yeah, it's overpriced, but when I sell my current card, it's basically, I'm getting it, like, at the normal price.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, buying that video card now, it's like $530. And like I said, when I bought it, it was like $350, like
right.
$329, something like that.
Nice.
And yeah, selling it used, like I can pretty reliably get $300 to $350 for it off eBay.
Nice. Oh, I saw something in the news. 88,000-year-old middle finger found in Saudi Arabia could rewrite human history. So the past is flicking us off again. They say it could rewrite human history. It mostly just adds fuel to the fire of things we talk about all the time about how...
People have been around a lot longer than...
Yeah, people have been around longer and doing stuff longer than people originally thought. So it's the oldest directly dated fossil of Homo sapiens to be found outside of Africa. And the term directly dated, they say, is of crucial importance. Because human-like fossils and artifacts have been found elsewhere in Asia and Australia. But in these cases, the fossils weren't directly dated. It was the things around them that were dated using different techniques. So using this specific technique where they like shoot lasers into tiny holes in the bones and measure radiation and things like that.
So they find isotopes that they know the half-life for.
Yeah,
so they can see, like, okay, how much is it broken down? How long would that take?
Yeah, it used to be they just tested carbon-14 for the carbon dating, and then they found out that was, like, you know, really not the best.
It gives you a ballpark?
Yeah, it gives you a ballpark, and then, like, when you're at a carbon-14, it's just like, well, these things are old. Mm-hmm. They're all the carbon-14's gone, so we know it's at least...
It's like it gives you a ballpark, but it's a pretty wide margin of error.
Yeah.
Like, I know they did something where, like, basically showing if you take something that's not old,
like
a year old,
right,
and do that same kind of carbon dating, it could be like, well, it's either new or 2,000 years old. Yeah,
it's either new or it's old. Thanks, science. Nailed it again. Let's see. Yeah, so traditionally, scientists thought that modern humans migrated out of Africa in a single wave 50 to 70,000 years ago. And this discovery suggests humans were moving maybe 25,000 years earlier than that. And it adds fuel to the fire that there was not a single migration, but several waves of migration multiple times during many windows in the last 100,000 years. And then it was found in the Arabian Desert. But back then, the region was humid and monsoonal with grasslands and hippos and snails. So there you go. That's all. Just thought that was interesting. People are like, just no, like, why? First of all, why would you ever assume that, like, there was like one single simple answer for anything that had to do with people? Mm-hmm. It's just like, oh, it was one time, all at once, all of humanity left Africa. Exactly 50,000. Yeah. Like, or people just did what they always did and just, like, meandered around.
Yeah.
Probably everyone had an argument about something, and then they split into different factions and
Fuck
left.
you, I'm going to start my own tribe.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, well, Gonna cross this water.
and hookers. It's gonna be blackjack and hookers.
Blackjack and hookers over on this side of the water. Have fun in your regular climate. Yeah, so that's been going on. Probably as long as there's been... Probably not even people. Probably before people. Since the ancestors of people, which we now know were not Neanderthals because they lived side by side with people and no one's sure what caused their extinction.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, you didn't know that?
I
Yeah.
didn't know that. Maybe we
Oh, yeah.
could.
Well, that was the original theory, was that Homo sapiens came around and then caused Neanderthals to go extinct because Homo sapiens were the superior being. But in fact, they existed side by side and interbred in a lot of ways. Homo sapiens were outmoded by the Neanderthals. They had likely better cardiovascular systems, and they too were just as cognitively developed because they painted abstract cave art representing like concepts and things, not just like literal like cow, stick, fire. Like they actually were at the time as advanced as people. So recent data suggests. So once again, they know that Neanderthals were still around at least 40,000 years ago, but no one knows what happened to them. They know that because the average human being only has about 2% Neanderthal in their DNA, they weren't interbred to the point of phasing out. Like they didn't just commingle until everything became homogenous. Like they interbred, but like they still were their own thing and then disappeared for some reason. So no one's quite sure why yet. So still working on that. But yeah.
I say aliens.
It's gonna be let's look at it logically. It's probably all of them left in one single wave.
Exactly. And how would you move that many people?
And how would you move it?
Aliens.
What you meant to say was aliens.
Yes.
With your hands up and your
Crazy
hair all
hair.
frizzy. Yeah. Aliens. Well, obviously, you know, you got your Stonehenges and you got your pyramids and your
Exactly.
your ley lines.
The writing is on the wall.
Yeah, literally channeling the Earth's energy. They clearly opened a Stargate, like that movie, Stargate, and then zipped on over to Egypt Planet or whatever. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie, but I'm pretty sure that's the general.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's like bird-headed people and stuff. Yeah, something like that. Or
Yeah, that's basically the Egyptian gods were all
aliens. From
depicting they were basically depicting aliens.
Right, yeah. Which we now know to be accurate, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, so,
Stargate was a
documentary.
It was a very revealing documentary.
Yeah. Like how I live my life based on that documentary, Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
That's my whole life. All right. So anyway, as you listeners and people here might remember, I went off to go climb Aconcagua, the second highest mountain in the world, with an explanation point, which is an asterisk, because it's the second highest mountain if you don't count all the mountains in the Everest range. So it's the highest mountain in the world outside the Himalaya range. Everest and then all of its crazy orbiting peaks are all part of that same range. So if you count them all as sort of like one entity, this is the highest mountain outside of that. So I went to go climb it. And it's affectionately called Death Mountain because it kills so many people every year, debatably the most people of any mountain in the world. And
more than Everest?
More than Everest, because people take Everest seriously. And people rock up to this mountain and they're like, yeah, we're just gonna saunter on up and whatever. It's whatever.
It's a day trip.
yeah, it's a day trip. It's whatever. Yeah, so knowing that, for the first time in my life, I decided to prepare. Got a $1,000 tent. I only paid $450 for it because I got it from another guy who'd used it mountain climbing, but it was still in great condition. I got a tent that was originally $1,000. I got a $400 sleeping bag. Got it on sale, but I mean, it's still MSRP was $400. Got it for half price because it's a ladies' sleeping bag.
What?
Yeah. So they
So okay, how are sleeping bags not unisex? It's literally a tube.
It's
you slide into.
a tube you slide into. I'm glad you asked because I myself didn't know this. So there's men's sleeping bags and women's sleeping bags. So all the materials and everything are the same. Typically, the design, like the shape, because not all of them are tubes. Some of them are like body shaped tubes or like mummy The mummy bags,
Yeah,
those are the
there's
worst
the-
because
yeah.
you just like get in like you're dead, and you have no wiggle room. But for the most part, I mean, they're tubes. You get in, and people are, for the most part, all shaped very similarly. You got your like dome region and your like thorax, your abdomen.
Yeah, it's basically you got like different heights and widths.
Yeah,
but for the most
you know,
part,
you got your limbs. Like no one's rocking around regularly with like 4 wheels and tank treads and like a I don't know, a cone for a head. Like it's all usually no one's got those Mad Max shoulder pads growing out of their body with like spikes and stuff. Like you're all pretty similarly shaped. So I didn't realize, but sleeping bags are sold. So if you're talking within the same brand name and everything, like all things being equal, brand name, make, model, and all that, their price comes down to how cold they're rated.
right.
So you have like a 0-degree bag or like a negative 20-degree bag or negative 40-degree bag. The colder the temperature is rated for, the more expensive the bag is. So here's where it comes in, because while the men and women sleeping bags are made identically, they're marketed as being rated for a different temperature. So a woman's 0-degree bag is actually rated for a man at like negative 20 degrees because they just assume that women are going to be colder. So they're like, yeah, this is a 0-degree bag for a woman, but like if you're a guy or you run hot or you just put a shirt on or whatever, it's a negative 20-degree bag. So they have a comfort rating, like a durability rating, and then like an extreme survival rating where it's like you'll probably survive in this temperature, but you will not be comfortable. So like this bag was a 0-degree ladies bag, but it was a negative 20-degree for men, and its survival rating was like negative 60 degrees Fahrenheit. These are all in Fahrenheit.
So is that because the women typically have more fat that they carry? Because they do.
No, they
more
should be.
fat.
They should.
Maybe
Yeah,
the
yeah,
opposite then.
yeah. They should be warmer because they carry more fat. You would think.
Oh, so it would be the opposite. Yeah.
Yeah, so
I'll,
you would
I'll
think
just say
it's because of their
working in
circulation.
in
Yeah,
an office, women are always fucking cold.
yeah, they're always cold. That's a normal. Like you'll catch the occasional outlier, of course, but as a rule of thumb, women do not put out as much heat as men because they have less muscle mass, and muscle burns more calories, and calories are a measurement of heat. So you're constantly churning out more heat as a guy that has more lean muscle mass, or lean body mass, I should say. So your skeletal system and your organs are also lean muscle. Any non-fat tissue, non-fat, non-water tissue is lean mass. So like guys just typically put out more heat, so they don't get as cold. Whereas women also have they have worse circulation on average, and their fat cells are actually layered differently. So guys' fat cells are kind of layered in a grid, whereas ladies are layered more in like a vertical stack, which is why they get cellulite so easily. Why they look saggy, whereas like guys don't get the like saggy lumps as much. Like you'll still see fat, gross, stretchy looking guys, but it won't be the like off-kilter bulges you normally see in like ladies. And once again, there are outliers to that. But anyway, so this was a 0-degree ladies bag, but as a guy, it was negative 20 degrees. But if I bought a guy's negative 20-degree bag, it would have been like $100 more expensive because it was being sold at a lower temperature rating. But the guy was like, yeah, like this is the exact same shit. It's just marketed differently. If you don't mind getting in a lady's bag, I was like, how much money am I saving? He was like, I don't know, like he was like, after this discount, after the sale and everything, you're gonna save like $250. I was like, can I fit in this bag? And he was like, let's find out. And I got in. I was like, wow, it was for like a 6-foot tall woman. There's like, sounds like, wow, like I have so much room in this bag and I'm so warm. You have made yourself a sale, mister. So I got that bag, which I'm really proud of. I only wish that it didn't say woman's bag real big down the side. But,
That's what I was gonna say. It's like, how would anyone even know it's a woman's bag?
that's how they would know.
They look identical.
Yeah, they do look identical, except for the giant woman's bag printed down the side, which seems unnecessary to me. Maybe that's to deter people with more fragile egos, but I don't have a fragile ego. It is solidly reinforced to withstand anything. My ego remains inflated no matter what. So I was like, I will take your largest lady's bag, please. One women's bag. Do you have any women's clothing that goes with that? Like, I will wear those too if they're cheap enough. But yeah, so I got that. Like, I really prepared, got everything, because I was going with no guide and no team and no support, which are all things that most people have when they climb this mountain. Most people get a guided expedition, and and they'll pay $5,000 or $6,000, and they'll have guides, they'll have porters, Sherpas carrying all their gear, they have chefs, they have people doing all their logistics. They don't have to worry about food, they don't have to worry about the route. They don't have to do anything but show up, and they're done. All their gear's provided. Like, that, all they have to do is put clothes on and go from A to B. Like, that's it. I had to worry about everything. I was getting my own weather reports, and I was having to worry about, like, acclimation. You know, you can't climb too high too fast, or your brain will bust out of your skull, or your lungs will fill with juice, and you'll drown in the air. I don't want that. So I was having to worry about all that. You know, I had to carry everything. I didn't have my gear split between 6 people and 5 Sherpas and my guide. Like, you know, I had to worry about all that shit. So I was like, but I'll be saving so much money by not going on a guided expedition. Plus, I want to set my own schedule. Like, what if I'm climbing and I'm just feeling super good? I'm like, oh, I could go extra high today. I don't want to have some slow guy in my group slowing me down. The slowest guy in my group is me, so I can just go because I'm a group of 1. So I was like, yeah, that'll be cool. And since I'll be saving all this money by not going on a guided expedition, I can then invest that money in quality gear, because of course I'll be going on other terrible ideas, and I can reuse that gear. So I was like, yeah, I'm really gonna like take this mountain seriously, because so many people die on it. So like I read 3 books on climbing the mountain, checked numerous websites on people that have like climbed it before, done all kinds of stuff. So I was like, yeah, all right, I'm ready. So I was ready, set off. You know, no guide, no team, no support. And I was like, yeah, no problems. Asterisk. All the problems. All the problems! What do you think went wrong? I mean, you checked my blog. Do you remember any of the things that went wrong on my blog?
Well, I remember you saying that, like, you had everything lined up except the boots.
Ah, yes,
You
okay.
You have to have some kind of specific boots before they'll even let you on the mountain.
Yes, normally. Or, like, you can get on, but you can't get, like, up past a certain point if you don't have these boots, typically. Which I did get my boot situation taken care of. There was the boots are like $850 US. They're a double layered mountaineering boot. So it's a boot, like a giant boot that you would lace up and everything. You know, like you're picturing a boot in your brain. That's what this is. It's like a giant boot made of plastic and stuff, but it's got laces and everything. And inside of that is a completely other boot, like you're picturing a regular boot would be, with like lace, its own set of laces and soles and everything. And then on top of, on the outside of both of those boots, you would strap on your crampons and all that stuff. So you're effectively, and then you have like 3 layers of socks once you're close to the top. So you're effectively wearing like 4 shoes at the same time. It's very obnoxious to walk around in. But it's better than losing your feet. Yeah. Which does happen. But yeah, they're $850. I didn't want to buy those in case I didn't like them. So there was a company who rented them to me for $30. I was able to rent these boots, which fantastic price. A lot of companies in the area, so that's like where the bulk of this area's income comes from, is people climbing this mountain. So they get most of their money from people buying climbing permits and people hiring guides and muleteers and renting boots and stuff like that. So, which is also why thievery is so common in the area, because people that have their own gear get their gear stolen and then sold secondhand, and it's big money. But yeah, so a lot of the companies in the area, I guess, from what I was hearing from other people, demand that you pay the worth of the equipment you're renting up front, and then when you return it, they give you your money back.
So basically you have to like pay like a deposit.
Yeah, it's like a deposit. Yeah.
So if you die on the mountain, they don't lose all their money.
Exactly, yeah. Which is probably pretty common, except they've got so many salvagers and scroungers that go up there. You know, those boots would probably make their way back before the body did, if it ever did. But yeah, like, who's got an extra $3,000 lying around to rent equipment? And then I was like, okay, well, you know, if it can't be helped, I guess I'll try to work something out. But then I heard that, like, part of the racket is you go to return it, and then they're like, oh no, it's in too bad of a condition. You know, you don't get your deposit back. And I was like, oh hell no, I can't be bothered with this. And then I heard that there was an equipment rental place, like, literally underground in some basement, where you didn't have to pay a deposit. You just tell them how long you're going to have it for, and then you pay them for that time. So I was like, I'm going to have these boots for 7 days? The guy's like, oh, you're just going to go, like, you know, like, sightseeing around the base of the mountain? I was like, no, I'm gonna get to the top and back. And he's like, in 7 days? I was like, yeah, I don't see a problem with this. And he's like, okay, well, $30. I was like, okay, thank you. And, yeah, spoiler alert, I was gone a lot longer than 7 days. But I did get him his boots back, and he didn't charge me anymore, which was nice. Yeah, he was just like, oh, you made it back! Awesome! Thought you'd be dead. I'm like, so did I, so cool. No, right out of the gate, though, so I flew out of here to Argentina, where Aconcagua is located on the border of Argentina and Chile, a few hours outside the city of Mendoza, which is surprisingly upscale. It's like a really high-end European city. And I just got there and I was like, I instantly don't have enough money to be here. To the mountains! But, yeah, so I flew in Argentina. I did my classic Nash trick, where I had a bunch of bags and gear. So I had like my one bag, and I had another bag, a bunch of gear, and then I put it all inside a much larger parachute-sized bag, and I was like, that's my one checked bag. And so I'm like loading it onto the like check-in belt thing, and the guy's like, yo man, this looks like a body bag. What do you got in there? I was like, bodies. And he's like, yeah, it looks like it. Well, you know, you're good. And I was like, all right, thanks. And yeah, just a real fun time, you know. And then I get to Argentina, and it turns out the TSA didn't like the cut of my bag's jib, and they just sliced the whole thing open, and fucking rifled around all my stuff and stole a bunch of my stuff. Nice. They left me a little note that was like, TSA did this. You're welcome. I'm like, that was it. May as well have been a drawing of a middle finger signed by the TSA. Because they leave a little note, they're like, hey, we gotta search suspicious stuff. So, you know, we ripped all your shit apart, but, you know, just looking for...
So I mean, I assume the large bag they had everything encapsulated in
yes.
had, like, a zipper.
Exactly, that was my thing. So, part of the note was, if your bag is locked and we can't get in, we're gonna have to slice it open. It's like, it was an unlocked zipper! Just unzip the zipper! But they totally destroyed it, and then they rifled around my other bag, and they stole my repair tool and like 3/4 of my food and some other stuff. Mind you, so you might think, oh, well, this food violated customs laws. It was like fruits and vegetables or whatever. Not the case, all prepackaged, but also it was all the same food, and they only took 3/4 of it. So if it violated the law, they should have taken all of it. But apparently in this area, it's just a known thing that, like, if the TSA agents are hungry, they're just going to steal all your shit. So they did. They stole all the food they wanted.
So this was outside of the States, then?
This was leaving... This was the U.S. TSA. TSA only exists in the U.S.
Isn't that, like, unconstitutional, though? I mean, especially if it was a locked bag. I mean, wouldn't they need a warrant unless they can actually see
No, they have power to search whatever they want.
Yeah, they have carte blanche. you give up your right to not be searched when you fly on the airline. Like, that's the agreement.
That's ridiculous.
I agree.
Yeah.
Also, they're not a government entity.
That, and then they're also not effective at doing the one thing they're supposed to do.
Yeah, they've got an 80% fail rate. They got audited by the government, like, right before we left. I think I talked about this in the last episode. But yeah, they've got an 80% fail rate. They're real good at stealing iPads and shit, though.
Yeah.
Like, even the airlines are like, please don't put anything valuable in your checked bag. Like, that's what they're for! Like, I can't be carrying the 120 pounds worth of stuff onto the plane because you won't let me. Like, and then people are like, well, yeah, you can't have your computer's on the plane. It could be a bomb. They're like, well, I can't put it in my check bag because the TSA is going to steal it. I mean, I don't have a computer, but like...
Where do I put this bomb? I'll just take it on the plane.
Yeah, that's it. You have to stow that
in the backpack? I'll just bring it on.
You have to stow that in the overhead bin or put it in the seat in front of you.
Down
yeah.
We're going to check that.
Sir, that bomb is too big. You're going to have to buy a separate ticket for that bomb. Okay? Make sure to securely installed in the seat next to you.
I haven't flown a whole lot recently, but no, the TSA is always pain in the ass.
Yeah, they're just like these carte blanche security Gestapo, but they don't do their job. They only steal and break stuff.
Yeah,
that's it, and there's like nothing you can do.
So they don't work like who? So if they're not
they're not
for the government,
they're not part of the government, but
American Airlines.
They're contracted by the government, but they're not part of the government. They're just a company that got like.
So like a military contractor like Northrop
Grumman or whatever.
Or Xenon,
Right.
Yeah,
formerly
okay.
Blackwater.
Raytheon.
Yeah.
It's like, they aren't a government agency. They're
Right.
just contracted by the
Right.
government to do things for the government.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's say that I built my own airport, and
Right.
I was like, Virgin and American, blah, 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 you can all fly in here, and I'll totally let you use it and whatever, just give me a cut. Am I forced to let the TSA in there?
Yes. Because they're
Well,
contracted.
that seems
Yeah, they're contracted-
bullshit, because this is my private business,
Right.
and that's like...
But you're
not-
running your private business in and around governmental areas, which is the entire United States.
Well, but if it is the government, then they need to obey the Constitution.
But they're not the government. Just the government tells them what
That
to
is
do.
so, bullshit, loophole.
You can't. Yeah. You can't get mad at the government because it's not them.
Well, I know there's also all these
Ridiculous.
things with interstate travel.
Yeah.
Brings up a lot of basically federal powers that you don't have a say in it.
Yeah.
Which is one of the things with gun sales.
Right.
That it's technically illegal to sell guns across state borders.
Right.
Same with insurance. like health insurance.
Right. Yeah.
That I can't purchase the same plan that someone in Idaho
Yeah.
could purchase.
Because they use a lot of different analytics and stuff.
Right.
Different mean income.
Which that's why the same coverage can vary in cost greatly depending on where you live.
Yeah.
Because
I'm
again,
sure
there's a lot of math and
Yeah.
actuarial science behind it. Where it's
I'm sure that if you try to buy the same plan in San Francisco versus rural Georgia,
Kansas or something.
yeah, you'd probably see a massive discrepancy
Yeah.
in the cost when adjusted for cost of living or whatever. You hope they're adjusting for something, but who knows?
Well, and it's the thing though, you can't even see the prices.
Exactly, yeah. Have we talked about this before? That the United States is less of a country and more 54 loosely tied together countries.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really weird.
Which I mean that is a very good way of describing the U.S.
Yeah.
Well, and part of the fact too
Because some of the state laws are drastically different.
Oh yeah. Well, then also the fact too, just the U.S. is huge.
Yeah.
Compared to
every state is the
most
size
other
of
countries in the world.
Yeah, excluding Russia, China, India.
Yeah. But yeah, comparing to most of Europe, there's some states individual, I mean, obviously Texas and Alaska, but
yeah,
even ones that aren't huge,
right?
That are as big or bigger than European countries.
Yeah, absolutely. Most of them are.
What is it? Luxembourg is half the size of Delaware.
Yeah, or
granted, Luxembourg is really small.
Liechtenstein is the sixth smallest country in the world. It's Rhode Island dwarfs.
Yeah,
Liechtenstein. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy, but
I think that's maybe what I meant.
Oh,
Liechtenstein instead of
yeah,
because Luxembourg's not an actual country; that's a city in Germany.
Yeah, I just talked to a guy from Luxembourg. He was like, "I'm from Luxembourg," and I was like, "Oh, cool, Germany," and he was like, "No," But then I was
Austria?
I was like, "Shit, am I wrong?" I'm maybe. I was like, we'll just say Luxembourg is Luxembourg, and we'll leave it at that. But I'm gonna go
maybe
getting
the two confused. But
yeah,
one of them is a very small country.
Yeah,
that has less than 1 million people. It's 900,000 people.
Yeah,
but it's half the size of Delaware.
Right. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So the TSA is just a nightmare.
Yeah.
Bunch of, I don't know, brigands, I guess, brigands. So yeah, really not a fan. So they took my repairing gear, so if anything broke, I couldn't repair it, and they took most of my rations, but I didn't know how many or what all they took because I didn't have time to sift through it in the airport because I just found out my luggage was
re-inventory
damaged. Yeah, so I was like, shit. So I just scooped everything into a big pile, and I reported it to the guard in Argentina, and he was like, oh shit, I'm so sorry. Here's an Argentinian insurance form. We will cover the cost of your bag up to 2,000 Argentinian pesos, which is $100 US. I was like, okay, well, that's not going to get me a new bag, but coupled with the insurance that I already have, those two things together may, and I'm still working on getting that sorted out. But I was like, all right, well, I got to get out of the airport and start gathering, shit for this mountain climb. So I take a bus, get to this hostel, put all my stuff in my room, and then I immediately head out to go get these boots. And now I need a new bag, so I rented a bag as well from the same underground establishment. So rented a bag, rented a boots, rented crampons to go with the boots, and then found out that the bus that was leaving for the mountain was getting ready to leave, like, right then. And I was like, oh, shit, I need to get on this bus. Like, I was originally going to sort all my gear and figure out what I need. I should be able to still have time to do that, but it'll be close. And I get back to the hostel and find out that they've taken all my shit out of my room, thrown it into a big pile in the courtyard, because they are fumigating for bed bugs.
Nice.
And I was like, great, I don't have time for any of this shit now. So just scooped it all up in a big pile, put it all in the giant bag that I just rented, and got on the bus. So already doing terribly. And then the morning that I went to go fly out for Argentina, like from here, I woke up and I was just covered in sweat, and like my joints hurt and my nose was clogged, and I was like, oh my god, am I getting sick? I've only been sick 4 times in my whole life. This is the worst time to be sick. And I felt so bad, I just for half a second thought about not getting on the plane to go climb this mountain. But I was like, I'm too far invested, like I've already got all the shit, and like if I miss this window, I'm gonna have to wait at least a year before I can climb this mountain again. Like, I'm going, I'll probably feel better once I get in motion. And then on the way there, like, something happened. So like my throat was all boogery, so like I couldn't really talk. I had like a raspy throat, and I was like, ah. But then because of the pressure change, like all the boogers shifted up into my eardrums, and I went deaf. And so by the time I landed at Argentina, I was deaf and mute in a Spanish-speaking country. I was just like, help! I need help! I need an adult! So I was off to a terrible start. But after I got on the bus to the mountain, I felt a lot better. So that was just like, I don't know, like a 24-hour thing. But it was already off to like a terrible start. Oh yeah, so before I could get on the bus, I had to go get my climbing permit, which you can only get in the city in Argentina, Mendoza. So I had to go to the permit office. But to go to the permit office, I had to do this other thing. You have to prove you have insurance, the special climbing insurance, mountaineering insurance. I was like, I'm never going to use this insurance. I've never used insurance ever. And they're like, well, you need it to get this permit, so you either go get it or
you don't
climb. You don't climb. And I was like, ugh. So I looked into it, and it was only, quote unquote, $160. So I was like, fine, I will get your climbing insurance for the privilege of paying you another $800 to get my climbing permit.
Well, how long does that insurance last?
2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah. So you have to make sure you're on the mountain during the 2 weeks that you choose. Because if something happens outside of that 2 weeks, you're not covered. And so I was like, okay, well, these are the 2 weeks that I should be there, and where I'm most likely to have something happen. And okay, well, there goes $160. And then I go to the permit office, and I'm like, okay, here's the insurance. Can I have my permit, please? And they're like, sure. You know, $800. So I'd pre-counted $800 in cash, and because I think we previously talked about this, in order to curtail illegal activity, they limited card transactions, and you could only withdraw like $150 from the ATM per day. So I basically had to rock up with a couple $1,000s in cash in advance because I knew I was gonna have to buy all this stuff. So I pre-counted $800 because I knew that's how much it was gonna cost. Then I counted it again in front of her like a few times. So in total, I counted this money like 5 times. $800, gave it to her, and she's like, "Oh, you're still 20 short." And I was like, "I don't think that I am."
No, count it again.
But she already she just took it, counted it, threw it in a drawer, so I couldn't be count it again because it was all jumbled. So I was like, "Oh, you bitch! I know that was the right amount." So then I gave her another 20. And she's like, "Oh yeah, but because you're paying in U.S. dollars, we have to convert it to pesos. That's going to come to another $20 because of the conversion." And I was like, "I'm gonna fucking punch your throat, lady!" But I couldn't do anything.
Yeah,
it was play the game or not get my climbing permit, and I'd already paid $1,000 for it. I was like, "Fine, here's another $20." So she did eventually issue me the climbing permit, and then I scuttled off and caught this bus to the little town that's right at the base of the mountain called Los Penitentes. And this bus driver knew that I was stopping there. And when I say it's a little town, I mean it's got 10 buildings. They're all 1-story shacks. And then there's one fancy-ish hotel that all the guided expeditions use as a base. And then in the wintertime, it's a ski resort. But outside of that one building, the rest of it is just shacks. So this guy knew I was climbing, and I was like, I'm going to Los Penitentes. And he's like, sure, no problem. And he just flew right past it. So I was like, oh, you passed the thing. And he's like, okay, well, just get out here. So then I had to get out and, like, hike back a mile with all my floppy gear that's still not packed. It's just in this big, loose tarp bag. So then I get to the shack that I'll be staying in, and then I actually, like, sort my gear and get everything packed. And that's when I found out I was missing most of my food. But there wasn't anywhere to buy food. So I was like, shit, I'm going to have to just make do with what I got. Very, like, small amount, way smaller than what I was planning on. But when I get to base camp, I'm sure I'll be able to get some rations somehow. So I knew that thievery was, like, rife on the mountain. And I really didn't want to get, like, a week and a half into this climb and have all my shit get stolen. So I think we talked about this. I was looking into hiring, like, a mercenary guard to guard my stuff, but it was like $1,000. So I was like, shit, I'm normally the guy you would hire to guard your bag, but now I need a guy to guard my bag. Like, who watches the Watchmen? What am I gonna do? And so I found out that if you rented a mule,
it came with a guard.
It came with a guard. Yeah. So for $300, you got a mule, which is whatever. Who cares? But with that mule, supposedly, you know, the mule will take your stuff and take it from the base of the mountain all the way to base camp. So I was like, okay, well, that's whatever. But once you get to base camp, the camp before base camp, and then a couple of the camps above base camp, you get a guard, someone to watch your stuff. You get access to better campsites because these, like, 3 main climbing companies have, like, quartered off the mountain. So, like, if you don't have services from one of these companies, you're, like, sleeping on the edge of a cliff, basically. But the companies also rent the mules. So if you get any service, you get access to everything. So the cheapest service is renting a mule. So you get the mule, you get guards at every one of those camps, you get the water at the camps that have water, at Confluencia, the camp between base camp and the base, and base camp, you can use their toilets. And then you also have the option of, you know, like, using them for, like, weather reports and then different things like that. So, like, you get a lot of shit for $300. And I was like, you know what, that's worth it to me for $300 to have someone guard my stuff and, like, have access to, like, be able to stash my things securely.
Yeah.
So I rented this mule, and I was like, cool, let's do it. So how it's supposed to work is the mule meets you at the fancy hotel, and you give the muleteer all the gear you're not going to be using between then and base camp, and then the mule takes it all the way up to base camp. What I didn't realize was you are able to work out, like, stops for the mule, so, like, you can have the mule carry all your shit until the first camp, and then you get your stuff, and you sleep for the night, and then in the morning you load the mule back up, and then the mule takes your stuff to base camp, and then that way you're just carrying your own body and some water. I didn't know that, so the mule just went from this hotel all the way up to base camp, and because I just thought that's what it did, so I was like, shit, alright, well, it's got to carry all the stuff I'm not using, but because I'm a one-man army, there's nothing I'm not using. So this mule just left, and I was left to carry, like, because I was like, well, I need, like, my tent and sleeping bag and food when I get to this first camp, and then I'm gonna need my tent and sleeping bag and food when I get to this next camp. So I was like, alright, what am I not using? Oh, nothing. Like, I need everything. So I didn't realize I could make the mule stop at the places that I was gonna stop.
And basically just meet you there.
Yeah, that was basically it. So that way you don't have to ruck, like an 80-pound backpack through horrific terrain for 18 hours, which is what I did. So by the time I got to base camp, I was literally almost dead. Like, I was so messed up. So it was like 5 or 6 hours the first day to get to the first camp, and then it was 12 straight grueling hours to get to base camp the next day.
And you're doing this all on foot?
All on foot. I was so messed up. I cannot stress to you. Base camp is at, like, 4,300 meters, which is, like, the base camp for this mountain is, like, 5,000 meters taller than Mount Fuji, at least. So it's just, like, going up to base camp, and then, like, By the time I got there, it was like 10 p.m. I'd been blacking out, like, on and off for hours. I was delirious. Like, I was hit with, like, altitude problems. Like, I was a mess. Like, they probably could have medevaced me right then and been within their right. Also, when I started to climb the mountain, I saw a guy getting medevaced for high altitude pulmonary edema, which is when your lungs fill with fluid because you climb too fast. So he was getting medevaced off. It's this bright yellow chopper, and that would not be the last time I saw the medevac chopper. Like, they just evac people all the time. Like, it's not called Death Mountain for nothing. So I get up to base camp, and I'm like, oh my god, fuck. And when I arrive at base camp, they're medevacing someone else, like from base camp. And so like as I'm like blacking out, this ranger comes up, and she's like, get down, get down. And I was like, oh god, can't understand. She's like, give me your bag. And I'm like, it's too heavy, you're not going to be able to hold it. You're not going to be able to hold this bag, it's way too heavy. She's like, just take it off and get down. I didn't realize there was like a helicopter like about to take my head off. They were like clearing the base camp helicopter landing zone because a helicopter was coming down to like take up some dead bodies or whatever, dying people. And so it was like 10 p.m. and the lady was just like, oh my god, like, you look awful. And that would pretty much be like everyone's replacement for hello to me the entire time I was on the mountain.
Oh god.
Anytime I saw it, it's like, Jesus Christ! How are you alive? Like, I'm Tom Cruise from The Mummy, obviously. You should watch that film. It's not that bad. But, I can't die, but I really want to. But, so I was just like, I'm fine, everything's fine. They're like, you are really messed up. I was like, yeah, I don't feel good. Been blacking out a long time. They're like, go get some water. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get some water. And so in order to get any higher, you have to see the doctor at base camp to get cleared to go higher. So I was like, oh, where's the doctor? I want to get checked to go higher. And they're like, okay, well, it's closed right now. You can't do anything. It's 10 p.m. And I was like, okay, it's just in the morning. So like I set up my tent and I go to bed and I wake up in the morning. I'm like, time to go to this doctor and get cleared to go higher. And I go to the doctor. And they're like, whoa, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, I want a checkup so I can go higher. They're like, no, you gotta be at base camp at least 24 hours before you're cleared to go higher. And I was like, okay, that's fair. And they're like, come back tonight. I was like, all right. So I came back at like 9, and then I was like, well, I got here at 10 p.m. That means I'll have to get checked out at 10 p.m. And they're like, yeah, that's right. And I was like, okay. So then I come back at 10 p.m. And they're like, the medical tent closes at like 7. Come back in the morning. So I was like, fine. So I came back in the morning, and they took all my vitals, pulse, respiration rate. But they also use a pulse ox to check the saturation of oxygen in your blood. And they like checked my oxygen levels, and they're like, oh my god, no, you can't go anywhere. Like, my blood had like no oxygen in it. Like, from the climb up, I climbed up like super fast, and I was just like, there was just like, wow, no, why don't you just relax for like another day or two? And I was like, fine. So I relaxed another couple of days, and then I went to go see him, and I was like, hey, I was gonna do a cash and carry up to the next camp, and that is, so in order to climb high mountains, you have to climb up high, drop off gear you're not using, and then climb back down and sleep. So what that does is it gives your body a taste of the higher altitude, but then you come back down so that you don't go up too fast. So you go up, and then back down and sleep, and then the next day you move up and stay there. And then you kind of do this sort of...
your body acclimate a little more.
It helps your body acclimate a little bit more, so you're not climbing up too fast. So you get a taste of the higher altitude, then you go back down, and then the next day you go up to stay, and you might be there for a day or two. Then you go up, and then back down, and then up permanently, and you just repeat that process until you get to where you're going. So I was like, hey, I was going to do a cash and carry tomorrow. Is that cool? And they're like, yeah, that's fine. You just can't stay up there. You got to come back down here until we clear you. And I was like, yeah, I get it. It's fine. So I go back up, drop my stuff off, come back down, and then I'm like, shit, before I leave base camp, I need to get more food. Like, I'm not adequately prepared anymore, thanks to the TSA, for what's about to come. So I'm like looking around, and like I'm getting like vaguely bitter at the people on guided expeditions, because they have like chefs and like all these people carrying all their shit, and they're just like, not all of them, mind you, but a lot of them are just like people with money and like no sense or training or anything, like they're just schmuck people with like nothing better to do. I'm like, you would be dead out here if it wasn't for your babysitters, your team of high class pampering babysitters. And actually, I was talking to the doctor on the mountain, and she was like, "Yeah, you're doing it the right way. You're the only one doing it like a real mountaineer. You got to carry all your stuff and really rely on yourself. Like that's how it's meant to be. Most of these people don't belong here." And I was like, "Oh, that actually makes me feel really nice." And
But still, you can't go higher.
yeah, she was like, "You're not tomorrow though. Tomorrow you can go." And yeah, she was super cool. The doctor that ran the base camp medical tent, super cool lady. She gave me all kinds of tips and stuff. But I was getting kind of bitter at the guided expedition people. But their chefs and whatnot that would cook them the fancy breakfasts in their like big permanent tents, they would just like stuff the people on the expeditions like with food, really nice food, you know, like proper breakfast food and stuff. But the people wouldn't even eat it all, and they'd just leave it lying around and throw it away. So I would just very confidently walk into their tents and then eat all their food, because they're just gonna throw it away. So to hell with them. I'm not going to let them waste the food, so I just walked in and ate it all. Like, every day I was at base camp, that's what I did. And then I realized they've got a storage tent for, like, snacks and stuff like that, which they would leave unlocked. So I would just very confidently walk in there and just pilfer as much as I could. But it was all just, like, garbo snacks. Like, it was just, like, choco balls and things like that. But I was just like, I just need calories. But then going from like a debatably immaculate diet to a diet based exclusively on trash you found in a trash can and like chocolate balls as you're climbing up like a high altitude, like it's not great for the body. Plus, the higher up you get, like the slower you heal because you have less available oxygen. So you just start functioning worse all the time. So it's like, what's going to make this feel better is a terrible diet and a lack of sleep. I'm just going to do this. I'll feel fine. But I did wind up getting actual rations. I had to, like... I was like, hey, like, you guys sell meals. How much is it for a dinner or a breakfast? They're like, oh, it's $30. And I was like, oh, no thank you. And I was like, could I have some rations, please? And they're like, oh, we normally just sell the meals, but we have a ton of rations. Let's go talk to the area boss and see what we can do for you. So go to talk to the boss, and they're like, yeah, we'll get you some rations. Go talk to the ration manager and see what you could do. So I bargained with this guy. So mind you, this is after bargaining. And just to give you a sense of sort of the what do you call it? Not upscaling, but like with markup, I guess, like the price markup. Yeah. So I bought two at this particular exchange. I bought 2 packets of top ramen, you know, like you would get for like 10 cents. Mm-hmm. I bought 2 packs of top ramen and a tube of chocolate chip cookies. MSRP for those items on the high end might be $1.50 to $2.50. What do you think I paid for them?
Oh, $20.
$25. $25. So they're making like 1,000% profit,
yeah,
or something ridiculous like that. But like,
more
what?
Than that.
Yeah, like what could I do? Like, well, it's either this or die of starvation. So more crackers and cookies and top ramen, please. But thankfully, that's also how I justified pilfering all that shit from him. I was like, whatever, like getting my money's worth. But
so basically, you became a mountain thief,
mountain
bandit.
Not quite a mountain bandit.
Yeah, you weren't holding people up. Okay.
I was more like a hijinks filled raccoon than a TSA agent.
I understand why there's all this theft on this mountain.
Yeah, I'm just like, how dare the people in this mountain be stealing things from hardworking people? Because I'm just shoveling like just piles of chocolate balls into my hoodie. I'm just walking out looking like a Beanie Baby. I'm just like, yep, I always look like this. In case, I'm wearing a lot of layers.
This is all me.
This is all, yeah. This is
very lumpy.
Yeah, I've got a beanbag chair under. It's great for the insulation. I guess you obviously don't know what you're doing. Yeah, so then I climbed up. On the way up, I ran into a group of Argentinians that were climbing, and they were going all out. So it was just a bunch of like buddies, like a bunch of people that knew each other. Were climbing together. I'm gonna guess they were in their late 30s probably. But the guy who was leading their group, leading the expedition, he used to be a paid guide on the mountain, and then he retired, and then he was just like taking his buddies up there. But they were going max cash. They got so many Sherpas. Every time they made camp, they had a full-on barbecue. Like, they were, like, rucking a barbecue pit up this mountain. But they didn't carry any of their own shit. So, like, anytime they stopped, they had, like, so much food and supply. Like, every day was a party with these guys. And they spoke English. And they saw me and, like, called me over. And we wound up becoming, like, pretty chummy. And since the guy used to be a guide, like, he was telling me, like, all the best places to poop and gather water. And like all kinds of stuff, because as we previously talked about, not this episode but before, once you get up a base camp, when you get to base camp, they issue you your shit bag, and then you have to shit in a bag and carry it around with you for the whole time you're on the mountain because of the climate. It takes literally hundreds of years for your shit to decay on this mountain. And so, like, thousands of people attempt to climb this mountain every year. So within 2 years,
it would just be completely
the whole mountain would be completely covered in shit. And since there's no water or vegetation on the mountain, you have to go gather snow or go to, like, melting snow to get water. And if everything's covered in poop, you probably don't want to be drinking that water, so that no one can climb. So you got to carry your shit bag around. So, but also, like... since there's no vegetation, there's no plant or animal life, by the way, on this mountain, which the park warns has pretty heavy psychological effects and psychosomatic effects. So your body actually perceives yourself as 1,000 meters higher than you actually are. So if you're at like 4,000 meters, your body feels like you're at 5,000 meters because there's no plants or animals anywhere. You don't see them for weeks. And you're just like, everything looks like a 2005 Xbox 360 game. It's just brown and gray everywhere. Everyone on steroids and space marines and stuff.
There's no movement
anywhere. Yeah, there's no movement anywhere. Like, it's just like, oh god. And I did see a bird once, which like blew everyone's mind. Everyone was like, "Whoa, a bird!" Like, it was the coolest thing. But yeah, there's no plants. Like, you don't realize how weird it is to like not see grass or whatever for such a long time. But anyway, so these guys were telling, and since there's no vegetation, you're just like, well, you don't want to like poop in front of everybody. So it's like, where can I poop? So this guy was like showing me the best place to poop and like the best place to gather water and all this stuff. And they brought a lot of stuff in from like the rainforest to climb with them, and including real straight smuggled from the rainforest mate tea, which I had never had like super legit, like right out of the rainforest mate before. And it comes in a special cup with a special little straw, and they were like brewing it up and everything, and they're like, "Oh, Nash, you ever had it like straight out of the rainforest?" And I was like, I've been to rainforests a lot, but no, I've never been where this is. And they're like, "Oh, you gotta have it, man. You're gonna love it." And so I take it, and I love this anecdote because I love it when people do things wrong. So, like, their spoon is also shaped like a straw. So I just took the mate and, like, ate it. Like, I scooped it into, like, this raw-ass jungle bark into my mouth, and they were like, no, don't do that. So I was like, no, it's good. It's good. It's good condensed bark here. Which is like, oh, Jesus Christ. Because, like, you drink it, it has, like, I don't know what all's in there, but it's kind of like cocoa leaves. Like, everybody chews on cocoa leaves and brews cocoa leaf tea because of the powers of the cocaine leaf help you with adapting to altitude and stuff like that. And kind of like caffeine. Like, people are just like, I need my caffeine. Like, I need my cocoa leaves and I need my mate. So yeah, it was just, but people don't eat coffee grounds. You drink the coffee. And so, like, the equivalent of what I did with the tea would be, like, if someone handed you, like, a cup of coffee with a little, like, coffee ground thing still on top, and they just started eating the grounds. Just like, no, don't do that! You're doing it wrong! Like, yeah, you can really can't taste the beans in the coffee! She's like, no! It's still good. I mean, I like my stuff really strong anyway, so it was good. But yeah, then they taught me how to properly drink it, which was nice. But yeah, anytime I ran into them, like, they were throwing a big feast, and, like, they fed me, which stretched my rations out a lot, which I really appreciated.
So you're probably getting better quality food than your
oh god, yes,
ramen and cookies.
Yeah, it was really nice. They would make like actual ass. Like one night they made like really like a really in-depth like ravioli stew thing that was pretty good. And then they made a lot of like native Argentinian food that I don't know how to pronounce. I wrote it down on my blog, but I can't remember what it's called. But super good stuff. Yeah, just always dropping knowledge bombs on me. And then I ran into a solitary Japanese guy who was climbing, and was like, oh, I'm gonna go hang out with this guy. And then we exchanged like food. I gave him some ramen noodles, and he gave me a tube of wasabi. And yeah, then we ate dinner, just hung out for a little bit. Oh, he gave me some drugs. Not like cocaine. He gave me Diamox, which is the altitude for, or not altitude, the drug that people take for high altitude mountaineering. It's supposed to keep your brain from swelling up out of your skull and all that stuff. Some people swear by it, and some other people are like, no, don't take it because it's just masking the symptoms. If you feel like you're dying, you should probably just go down. Don't keep going up. And a very small percentage of people are like very deathly allergic to it. And it also increases your urine output, and you're already having to drink like 4 or 5 liters just to sit around and do nothing when you're up that high, because just the atmosphere leaches so much water out of your body. So it's like, shit, I've never taken this drug. I don't know if I'm allergic to it. I don't know if I'm going to piss myself or like what's going on. But, in a pinch, it'll be good to have just in case. So he gave it to me, which I thought was cool. And then the Argentinians fed me again. But yeah, so everything's going pretty good. And then I made it up to the high camp. Well, at first the Argentinians were like, hey man, the highest camp, right before you go for your summit attempt, they were like, oh, you should just leave straight from the second highest camp. Don't even go to the high camp. Just leave from here and go all the way up to the top and down in one day. And I was like, okay, well that's a jump of like 2,000 meters in a day, which is kind of a lot. Like, I don't know that I'm acclimated to that height. Like, I really don't want to get up and then just like explode. And they're like, you can do it. And I was like, I don't know, man. And they're like, yeah, we're gonna go do it. And I was like, okay, well, like one of you guys was a guide on this mountain for ages, and I was like, I don't know the way. Like that leaves like no time for getting lost, because you can't be up at the top when the sun goes down. Because at the base of the mountain, it's like 100 degrees Fahrenheit. But up at the top at night, it's like negative 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So you're gonna die if you're up there. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I get lost a lot. Like, I'm getting lost all over the place climbing this mountain. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. They're like, oh, yeah, you should totally do it. It's like, all right, well, let me talk to some of the rangers and stuff about it. And then I got to talk about it. Like, I don't know. Like people do it. Like, it's a thing people do. But if you're not super confident and competent in the route, maybe don't try it. And I was like, okay, we'll see. And then I saw the Argentinians the next day, and they're like, yeah, don't do it. We think it's a bad idea. I was like, this was your idea. They're like, yeah, don't do
you were
it.
the one suggesting it.
Yeah, they're like, we're gonna do it, but you should just go up to the high camp. And I was like, well, whatever. So I really just like, I can't stress enough, like, my bag was so heavy, because I had to keep carrying all this shit by myself, like, up the mountain, and it was so heavy. And every time I got to a new camp, I was like, well, this is it. I will go no further. And then after a couple days, I'm like, I can't just stay here. So I just go up higher. So I was like really enamored at the idea of being able to leave all my stuff in one spot and then just run up to the top and back down in one day. That sounded really good. But alas, it was not meant to be. And I'm really glad I didn't try that. Because I made it to the high camp. The highest camp, Camp Cholera. Or Cholera. And it is extremely windy up there. Like, it was so windy when I got there. Like, setting up the tent was like so frustrating. But due to because of the magic of like 2 hours of really, really gung-ho doing it. And through the magic of constant non-stop swearing, I managed to set the tent up in this wind. And so then I'm like set, getting all my stuff ready for my summit attempt. And the summit attempt from the highest camp takes on average about 14 hours round trip.
Jeez.
And so you gotta leave at the latest at 4:30 or 5 in the morning in order to get up there and back in time, because you're racing the sun, really.
Well, then how far away is the second camp from the highest camp?
Well,
as far as how long would it take you to travel normally?
Good question.
Because if the summit attempt is going to take 14 hours,
exactly.
Like if you're doing it all in one go, is it like 24 hours or something?
I think it's close to 18. I think it's like another 4 hours.
I mean that's doable, but
right.
That's grueling,
it's
especially
really
if you're
grueling.
carrying all your own shit.
Right, exactly. So I was like, okay, well, you know what? I'm just going to go up to the highest camp, which is at 6,000 meters. The summit is just shy of 7. We're going to round up to 7,000 meters. So the final day, you've got 1,000 vertical meters to cover, but it's the worst terrain of the climb. And so it's like, all right, here we go. So I'm laying out all my stuff. I had carefully rationed all my food that I had left so that I have enough left for this summit. And then the next day, I would have no food, but I would be on my way down, so it wouldn't matter. Because from the highest camp to base camp only takes like a day. It's because you go way faster going down than you do going up. So I was like, yeah, no problem. I can go down with no food because I'll be getting like invigorated with oxygen as I go down. So I was like, awesome. All right, so I need enough food for this one summit attempt, which is exactly what I had. Got all my gear ready. Like, because it's so grueling to try to get to the summit, you try to take the least amount of stuff possible. So it's just like, all right, all I'm going to take is this stuff. It's like I got all my stuff ready, and then I'm like, boom, like 4 o'clock in the morning rolls around, and I set off, and I'm going, and I realized that at like 10 in the morning, like every step was like a grueling, like gauntlet. Like I'd take like 3 steps, then I'd have to rest for a minute. Like I was just like, and then I was like, shit, is this the altitude? And then I was like, oh my god, I think I have dangerously low blood sugar. And then I realized that like because of my extreme rationing, like I hadn't been eating near enough to compensate for the amount of energy that I'd been burning off, let alone how high I was. And I was like, whatever, like I can make it this one final push. So like I'm going, and there was a ranger who was just sitting next to this part that I was climbing on. He was just sitting on a rock, and I could see him like in the distance. Maybe he was like, a quarter mile from me, and it took me like 2 hours to get to him. And then I'm like slowly getting past him, and he's like, you should go back down, man. You should go back to your camp and like rest. And I was like, I'm fine. I'm just catching my breath. And he was like, look, man, like people die up here all the time because they just run out of energy. Like their body literally burns off all its energy and then they die. And in my head I was like, that's 100% what's happening to me right now. Like I can feel like the very animating force of my body like burning out. And I was like, oh shit. And so I was like, I'm not turning around. Like I didn't come this far to turn around. Like I'll just pace myself, Maybe I'll go a little bit slower than 2 steps every 3 minutes. Like I'll just slow it down past that. And he was like, yeah, man, like don't do it. And I was like, I'm fine. Like once I get up to that cave, I'm gonna have a rest. All I need is like a quality 20-minute rest, and I'll be good. And he's like, okay. So about 300 meters below the summit, there is a cave that the rangers use as a makeshift medical station. So there's always like a ranger in there or close to there. And if some shit hits the fan and people are around there, that's where they take him because it's sheltered. So I got up to this cave and I was like, oh shit, like I need to sit down. So I have a sit down, and guy's like, hey, you want some tea? Like we have tea and like sugar water just for people who are like about to die of low blood sugar. And I was like, that would be lovely. So the guy gives me like a couple of like chewable sugar tablets and like some gummy bears and some tea. And I sat down for like 15 minutes. I felt amazing. Like it felt so good. And I was like, nice. So earlier, about the same time as I met the Argentinians, I was also on this... I kept running into this one guided expedition that had like 6 or 7 people on it. They were mostly annoying. But there was one kid on there. I call him a kid, like the same age practically. He just graduated college, and he was just doing this as like, you know, like his graduation like big celebration thing, and he was Canadian Egyptian, so he was born in Egypt and lived there for like, I don't know, until he was like 5 or something, and then moved to Canada, and he has like dual citizenship, but he just kind of goes back and forth. And we were kind of hanging out talking, just a cool guy to like hang out and talk with. And before, like when the base camp doctor cleared me to climb, she was like, I know you're by yourself, but do not attempt the summit by yourself. Have somebody with you, find out the schedules of the guided expeditions or something, and try to summit at a similar time as them. That way if something happens, like people will be around. And I was like, that's fair. So as I'm climbing up, the Argentinians are like, yeah, we're going up to the next camp today. And I was like, oh, I just got here. I should stay here at least 2 days. And then this other guy's group was like, yeah, we're also going up today or whatever. I was like, shit, I should really get on these guys' schedule. So instead of resting at the 2nd or 3rd camp, I just powered through and got to the next camp. And I was like, hope my brain doesn't blow up or my lungs fill with fluid. But anyway, so this was a cool guy that I kept running into. And on my summit attempt day, their group was also going towards the summit. And so I'm chilling in this cave, and then the ranger's like radio goes off, and he's like, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, hey, you all right? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine, man. He's like, all right, I'll be right back. So he disappears, and he comes back like 15 minutes later with the Canadian Egyptian guy who's like unconscious. And I was like, whoa, I know this guy. And he like comes to, and he's like, oh, hey, man. And I was like, what are you doing here? And he's like, I could see the top, man. I could see it. And I was like, what happened? He's like, passed out. And I was like, oh my god, like, is this an altitude thing? Like, did you climb too fast? Is this a blood sugar thing? Do you pass out on a regular basis? Like, what's going on? And he's like, I don't know, this is all new to me. Like, I've never just spontaneously lost consciousness before. I don't know what's going on. And I was like, well, I'll tell you, man, like, I think what you need is some gummy bears and some tea and like a 20-minute rest.
Yeah.
And then you and me can tackle this summit together. And he's like, I don't know. And I was like, trust me, you're going to feel amazing after these gummy bears and tea and like a 10-minute rest. So he gets some sugar. He gets some liquid. He rests for like 10 minutes. I was like, how you feeling, man? He's like, I'm feeling better. I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's tackle this thing together, man. We're going to go like Action Broforce style. We're really going to just tag team this mountain and do it. It's going to be great. You take my picture. I'll take your picture. We'll high five. It'll be great. And he's like, I don't know, man. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like,
you had the gummy bears.
Yeah, I was like, you drank
what more do you want?
I was like, you drank the tea, you had the gummy bears, you've been sitting down for 10 minutes. What don't you know? And he's like, I don't know, I'm good. I was like, what do you mean you're good? And he's like, well, like I made it all the way up here. I saw the top. Like that's pretty much the top. Like that's fine. I was like, it's not fine. And he's like, yeah, that's good enough for me, man. Like I saw the top. I had a great time. This is
seeing the top isn't the same as being on the top.
Yeah, I was like, really? I was like, we can do this. He's like, yeah, I just, I don't feel like it. And I was like, my brain couldn't process. Like, if I'd have paid $6,000 for a guided expedition and then did not summit the mountain, I would be furious. Like, I was like, what? I don't understand. And he's like, yeah, this is good enough for me. Like, I don't need any more than this.
I don't know. Maybe you just got like really rattled from a.
I don't think
so. Like passing out while he was up there, and he's like, I don't want to risk that again.
I think he was just content, and I don't feel that. Like, I was just like, I don't understand good enough, man. Like, what do you mean? And he's like, yeah, it's fine. Like, this is fine. And I was like, you just need more gummy bears. We'll give it 10 more minutes. I'll talk to you then. So I'm waiting for him to come to his senses. And as we're sitting in this cave, the sky begins to darken. And I'm like, man, it's a little early for nighttime, especially this high up. It should be light longer because we're so high up above everything. And it just gets darker and darker. And I was like, wait a minute. This isn't nighttime. And
this is a storm.
Yeah, and right about the time that the light bulb flashed, everything just burst into snow. Like the very air became like gray with snow. And I was like, wow, this is quite the snow. And I'd heard the legends of the Viento Blanco that only exists on this mountain, the dreaded white wind. It's supposed to have like amazing, like unimaginable destructive powers, like Ark of the Covenant, looking right into it, powers. And I just thought they were exaggerated, and I was like, yep, this is a real heavy snowstorm. I've seen those before. Like, Alaska holds the record for craziest snowstorm I've ever seen. So this is all blowing around, and I was just like, oh, shit, man. And I was looking at him, and he's like, yeah, I'm not climbing in this. And I was like, oh, yeah, he didn't even want to go when the weather was fine. Like, I'm never going to get him now. And I was like, okay, I can do this. So I look at the range.
You decide to climb in the middle of what you already know.
What I've heard,
this like mythical.
What I've heard, that like
terrible snowstorm kind of stuff.
The very fury of the gods themselves. And I was like,
and you're like, I can take this.
I was like, I got this. I mean, I had to struggle even getting to this cave. I was like passing out on the way here.
Yeah. So, like an hour ago, I was like feeling like I was going to die.
I ate the gummy bears. Have you never known the power of gummy bears? I was like, I've got this. So I look at the ranger's looking at me because he can tell from my face what I'm about to do. So I look at him and I'm like, can I get to the summit through this? And he was like, don't try. And I was like, I can do this. And he was like, don't try it. And I was like,
really, I don't want to have to bring the helicopter up here.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. The helicopter,
in the middle of this storm,
the helicopter cannot get up there.
Yeah, I would assume. I'm assuming like if something happened, like
they would have to drag me down.
Yeah,
they would have to drag me down. In fact, the helicopter can't even get to the high camp. It has to go one camp below that. So I would have to go down very far. It would be quite a situation to get me down from there. But I was like, I've been through worse. Like, I can do this. And the ranger was like, look, man, I have been on this mountain for 10 years. I've been a ranger on this mountain for 10 years. I've seen people die a lot. Like, a lot of people die trying to do the same thing. I'm here to tell you, there's nothing here but rocks and snow. There's nothing here worth dying for. It's like, the summit is in your heart, man. You already won. You did it. And, like, in my mind, I'm just like, no, I didn't. I haven't done it yet.
That's loser talk.
Yeah.
So you're like, fuck that bullshit.
Yeah, and like, he's giving me this beautiful speech, and the whole time he's talking, I'm just waiting for him to stop talking so I can start climbing. And like, like he's just like, don't do it. And as he's wrapping up his beautiful soliloquy, the lightning starts. It turns out that the Viento Blanco had not yet begun. And
you just had a regular run-of-the-mill snowstorm.
It was just a snowstorm when I thought I could climb it. Then it kicked into the force of the fury of the gods. This lightning was so hellacious. It was like a monsoon, it was like a hurricane, but all the water had been replaced with snow. Like, snow was coming in from every angle. Like, up, down, left, right, it was just blowing everywhere. Super strong winds, and this lightning was just like super powerful and green, and you're like basically the second highest place on the planet. Like, you don't want to be there during a lightning storm. And this thing is just like, the second it started, it was just like, destruction! And I was like, you know what? I am not going to try to climb in this.
Of my own volition.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I'm just going down to get more gummy bears. This has nothing to do with the fury of the gods.
What you said did not determine.
That's right. This is the storm, not you. I was going to climb in this, but this had nothing to do with your beautiful speech. But my mind is still made up. So then I was like, shit, I can't climb in this. And then I'm like looking out of the cave, and I'm looking down. I was like, I can't climb down in this. Like, I realized, like, in an instant, everything I had known was gone. Like, the whole path I took there was destroyed. Like, nothing was where it was, and I couldn't see anything, and the lightning was raging, and I was like, man, I really don't want to get hit by lightning again. And I was just like, shit, like, what am I gonna do? Like, I was just in this cave, like,
this is where I live now.
Yeah, I was like, do I live in this cave? And I kind of look at the ranger, and I was like, is this gonna stop? Like,
how long does this usually take to pass over?
Yeah, I was like, is this a short thing? And he was like, it's gonna be at least until tomorrow. before this thing lets up. Like, they can go for days.
Is this how you ended up here?
Yeah, I was like, have you been living in this cave for 10 years?
Were you just a normal hiker?
That's right. He's like, well, I guess I'm a ranger now. I was like, oh my god, am I going to be a ranger? Is this the curse of the mountain? If you don't die, then you're just here forever? Hotel California, but for mountain climbers?
Yeah.
And that's just like, oh, like, I didn't know what to do. Like, I was just like, I physically can't get down in this. Like, I don't know where I'm going. Like, everything's gone and whited out. And so, like, as I'm trying to figure out, like, what the hell I'm going to do, there was, like, an American military group or something that was on a training mission who, like, entered the cave. They just finished their mission from the top. And they were, like, on their way down using GPS locator beacons to get through the blizzard and everything. And the guy was like, hey, what's your deal? And I was like, just got stranded in here by myself, just trying to get down to the high camp, but I don't really know what's going on. And he's like, well, that's where we're going, and we have all these supplies and science and everything. You want to come with us? We'll lead you down. And I was like, one extraction, please. Yes, sir. And so thanks to the magic of these guys, and they were like, they were counting the space between the lightning strikes to, like, determine whether or not it was safe to leave the cave and all that. They were like, okay, well, the storm could be moving away. Turned out not to be moving away, but they knew that, if you stayed under the rocks that are taller than you and tried to move between lightning strikes, that it would not eliminate, but reduce the chance that you would be hit by this smoting power. And yeah, by the time, it only took a few hours to get down to the high camp, but in that time, everything had been covered in, like, feet of snow. Mm-hmm. Like, 3.5 feet of snow. Like, a lot of snow. And I was just like, oh my god. And it had destroyed, like, a lot of the high camp, like, tents that were there. My tent was still standing, because I got, like, the best tent you could get. But it had been destroyed. It was still standing, but, like, all the zippers had blown out. And, like, everything had ripped off. So now it was just, like a piece of roof fabric, which was nice, but, like, I get in my sleeping bag, and then I wake up, and the whole thing is just full of snow and ice.
Yeah.
And it's just filling with snow and ice all through the night. But my sleeping bag was so warm and cozy, I was like, well, I'll just deal with this in the morning. Like, I can't be bothered with this. I'll just dig myself out in the morning. Plus, I don't know if you've ever been in like a snowy survival situation or gone camping in the winter or whatever, but if you pack snow around yourself, it's very warm under there.
Yeah, they actually insulate.
Yeah, it's a fantastic insulation. So I was like, no reason for me to get all in a huff about this. Plus, I'd just been on, like, not only a 14-hour summit attempt that I didn't succeed on, but, then this blizzard came, and I had to, like, force my way through the snow, like, doing high steps and, like, pushing snow around. I was so exhausted, and I didn't have a proper diet. Like, I didn't have enough calories. I was so smoked. Like, my body was fried. And, now, I was up at the high camp, and I was like, I am going to summit this mountain. I'm not backing down, but I need to regroup. And also I'm out of food, and also I'm stuck in this blizzard, the Viento Blanco, and I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I know I'm not gonna quit. And but yeah, I was just, like, floppy and messed up from the summit attempt, and I was like, I just need to sleep for a while and, like, kind of recalculate. And that night, so the military guy, the leader of the, we'll call it a squad, I don't know what their deal was. Like, I don't know if they were just like a well-oiled, high-speed, low-drag machine of, like, mountaineers in training, or if they actually were military. Like, I didn't want to pry, but they operated like a military unit would operate. Same vernacular, same movement methods, same task delegation style. So I'm pretty sure that they were a military training exercise of some kind. Could have been a mercenary squad for all I know. I don't know, but they were good. But, oh shit, what was I gonna say? What was I talking about? The head guy. Oh, yeah, so he was telling me that, that people in like, when the Viento Blanco rolls around, it kills people in two different ways. One, people just get lost, and they just wander around until they die in the cold, which was definitely what was gonna happen to me. Or they can't see because it's a whiteout, and they just wind up walking off the side of the mountain and dying. And but thanks to the GPS locators and all that, like, that did not happen to anyone in the group. But I was just like, shit. And that night, people on the high camp sent off a bunch of signal flares. I'm pretty sure that people were lost in this blizzard and died and didn't make it back to camp. I can't validate that, but knowing how many people die on this mountain every year and how severe the storm was, I'm pretty sure a bunch of people died. But then the next morning, military leader guy comes up to me and he's like, "Hey man, we got some stuff to take care of, so we're gonna get out of here like tomorrow." And I was like, "Okay, well thanks again for the extraction and he was like, "Yeah, don't worry about it." And so then everyone is like hunkered down in their tents to like weather the storm. So no one's trying to leave their tent once they got back to it. But everyone needs info. So they're like, "What's the weather gonna be like? Can we try another summit attempt?" And like in the interim, new people had arrived at camp, like to greet the blizzard. So they're like, "Shit, I didn't know this is what it's gonna be like up here." So like setting up their camp. And so I'm like yelling at people like, "What's the weather report for the next 2 days? Like, what's going on?" And so we're all like exchanging information. And one of the new guys that showed up turned out to be a 56-year-old guy named Jim. And he was just like, "Yeah, just got here right now. I'm thinking about summiting tomorrow, but I don't know about the weather." And I was like, "Yeah, I just came back from a summit attempt. It didn't go very good because of this blizzard. Got 300 meters from the summit, but if you want to go, like, it's better to go in a group. Like, we could go together." And he's like, "Jesus, you're crazy. Like, back-to-back summit attempts." And I was like, "Yeah, also, I'm out of food." And he was like, "Oh my God, like, what kind of a person..."
Also, I haven't actually eaten a meal in the past 3 days.
Yeah, it's been about a week.
It's okay, you get close, they got gummy bears.
Yeah, they got gummy bears when you get to the cave. We can make it. And the guy's like, "Oh my God, like what kind of a guy would attempt this?" He's like, what do you do, like, when you're not here?" I was like, "Oh, you know, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I sometimes find rare things and sell them to people who want them after I've like smuggled them out of the country. Sometimes I teach high school, or sometimes I'll go back to Alaska and be a commercial fisherman." He's like, "I knew it! I knew you were going to be a commercial fisherman in Alaska. Only a commercial fisherman in Alaska would be crazy enough to do what you are talking about right now, like back-to-back summit attempts." And I was like, "Oh yeah?" He's like, "Yeah, where in Alaska?" I was like, "Kodiak." And he's like, "That makes sense. I'm from right across the channel in Cordova." He's like, "Yeah, I was a fisherman for like 10 years. And I was like, "Ah, that's why you're up here." He's like, "Yeah, I'm retired, so I thought I'd come and climb this mountain by myself." And I was like, "Yep, that makes sense. This all makes sense." And he's like, "Yeah, I was a bush pilot for like 20 years, and then I retired from that. I was a fisherman, then I retired and became a bush pilot. Then I retired, and now I'm a pilot in Arabia." I was like, "You don't know how retiring works. If you keep retiring and that's just you getting new jobs." And he's like, "Yeah, you know, I just like to stay busy." And I was like, "Yeah, I guess." And he's like, "Ah, it's crazy. Like, I knew you had to be like an Alaskan fisherman in order to be as crazy as you are." And I was like, "Yeah, man, like I was like, you know, I wasn't born there, but you know, it's like draws a certain type of person, you know, everyone's either insane or a criminal." And he's like, oh yeah, Alaska's definitely in the spirit, man. Like, you are an Alaskan and you're definitely crazy. You'd have to be to do what you're doing." And I was like, "Yeah." And so the next morning, he was like, "All right, let's try a summit attempt tomorrow." And I was like, "Okay, well, let's check the weather." So we're getting weather reports, and they're like, "It says it was supposed to be as good as it was today." I was like, "Well, today was good for about 10 hours, and then a deathly blizzard blew in. So like, I'm not trying to have this again." He's like, let's check again at 6:30 in the morning. I was like, "We normally leave at like 4. At 6:30 is pretty late, especially if we're gonna get caught in this blizzard."
Yeah.
But yeah, he came over at like 6:30, and the weather was way worse, like worse than before. And we're like, "Yeah, we're not gonna go today. I'm gonna take a rest day." Like, I can't really sit up; my body's so messed up. And he's like, "Yeah, that's fair. We'll go we'll go tomorrow." Like, "All right, sounds good." And so when the storm finally let up, the leader of the military group or whatever came over, and he's like, "Hey, heard you guys talking about Alaska?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's right." And he's like, "Yeah, I used to be a babysitter, babysitting a couple of idiots on a reality TV show about Alaska, like in Alaska." He's like, "I worked on that show for a couple years, taking care of these reality TV idiots out in the wilderness." And I was like, "Hey, hopefully one day I'll be one of those idiots. And he's like, yeah, well, you'll probably be like smarter than they were, I'm sure. And he's like, yeah, you know, I worked in Alaska on and off doing different operations for you know, tons, you know, years. And I was like, awesome. So he's like, yeah, you know, I like you. I like the cut of your jib. And he's like, these other guys, they couldn't give a shit about you because you're a gringo. But I like you. I'll tell you what. I gave you some advice and I gave you some stuff. He's like, you know, my group's heading out today. And we got a ton of rations left over. And we don't want to pay anyone to carry them down. And we don't want to carry them down. If you'll actually use them, we'll give them to you. And I was like, yeah, I'm out of food. And he's like, all right, they're yours. And they were like high-class rations. So this guy like rationed me up for like a week. Like he gave me like a week's worth of food, like high-class food. And I was like, man, this is better than I've been eating like for a long time. Like we're talking meat, we're talking granola and like nuts, like the whole shebang. Like way more soup than a human being could ever eat. But I gave it a go. And also like a ton of fuel, which I never used. I just kept passing it on to other people. But yeah, left me all kinds of stuff. And he's like, pro tip, don't go on your summit attempt tomorrow. Go the day after that, because that's when a bunch of other guided expeditions are going to arrive up here. And the snow and ice are now so bad up on the mountain, they're going to be like waist deep. You don't want to have to break that trail. So wait until these people
wait
that
until
have,
they start behind them.
Yeah, wait,
clear a path.
Yeah, wait until the people whose job it is to guide spoiled people that paid like $6,000 a piece. It is to like go up this mountain. Wait till they go up the mountain. Follow behind them about 45 minutes, and then go. He's like, you know, they're gonna set out at like 5. I'll say you set out at 6, and then it seems like you're leaving late, but because they're breaking the trail, you're gonna move way faster. And I was like, deal, you got it. Like an extra rest day, tons of food, don't have to work as hard. Sold. So that's what we did. Just a side note, they say that you're supposed to limit your body's exposure to altitudes above 5,000 meters to as little as possible. That's why most people climb up and down in a day from 5,000 meters. I've been at this 6,000 meter high camp for like a week. So like, like the human body degrades rapidly above 5,000 meters. And I'd been up there. Like first I got up there, I had to wait for the storm. I was like stuck in the storm. Then I had to wait for these other people to show up. It's just like, yep, this is not doing me any favors. Because, you know, I'm trying to heal from that first summit attempt, but like there's no oxygen to heal. And I didn't have enough calories till that guy gave me food. But then I got some sleep. Oh, yeah, that's the other thing, too, is the altitude. Before I adjusted, I woke up one time in the middle of the night, and my heart felt like a deflated balloon. Like, it felt like a floppy balloon with no air in it. Like, I was like, oh, God, this is not what a heart should feel like. Like, there was no beating. Like, I was conscious, but I was just like,
It was like beating was just kind of like...
Yeah, I was like... like, yeah, I was just like... Like, I was like, Jesus Christ. I was like, am I gonna have to take these drugs? Like, I kind of, like, sat up and moved around to try to, like, hopefully not make myself pass out, but, like, kind of get stuff going again. And it did. But, that was scary. Like, I was just like, oh, this high. I was like, are my lungs filling with fluid? Is that what this feels like? I don't have any frame of reference for what I should be feeling right now. But, yeah, so then the time came, for me and Jim to attempt our summit attempt, and the night before, some lady came over who was like, I think she was Polish. She was like half Polish, half French, and worked for the United States military. And she was like, I don't know, like in her 50s, and she's like, I want to go with you guys. And we're like, yeah, the more the merrier, you know, safety in numbers. And then a Spanish guy came over from Spain, and he's like, I want to go too. And we're like, okay, well, we're gonna rendezvous here at 5 in the morning. And then we're going to ship out at 6. And everyone's like, okay. So 5 in the morning rolls around. This lady came to me in the middle of the night, and she's like, I was trying to melt snow for water, but I'm out of fuel now. Can anyone melt me snow for water? And I was like, yeah, sure, I got you. So I made her water. I made her last liter of water. She'd already made like 2. She needed 3, so I just made her final one. But I was like, yeah, it's kind of like a foreboding thing because, you know, like, you're going to need water later on too. Like after today you'll need more water. But I told her, I was like, hey, those military guys like left me a cache of fuel like buried over there if you want it. She was like, oh, thanks. But yeah, so on the day that we made our summit attempt, my second summit attempt, Jim met me at 5. We're all good to go. The lady showed up. Spanish guy never showed, so we have no idea what happened to him. So then we're climbing the mountain, just the three of us. And in the blizzard, I forgot to mention this, in the blizzard on the way down, so I had bought 3 pairs of very expensive gloves to shield me from frostbite, from the horrific cold. All 3 pairs of these gloves failed out and got destroyed, like in the blizzard on the way down. Like the outer, most expensive glove just was like, I was like, oh god. And then the rest of them just like weren't up to the task. Like they weren't. So like we left, I think it was 5 when we left. And the sun wasn't going to be up until close to 7. And it was so cold. Literally the coldest cold I've ever felt in my life. And I was getting frostbite on my hands. And they hurt really bad. And I was like, shit, this is no good. But then they stopped hurting altogether. And I was like, that's way worse. Yeah. That's way, way worse. But Jim, 56-year-old Alaskan Jim, he actually had, and I had hand warmers. So I was like filling my gloves with hand warmers, and they were not working. That was just like, may as well have been filling them with sand. And but Jim had hand warmers that were actually working. So he's like, hey, I brought a ton of these. Do you want them? And I was like, yes, please. So he gave me the hand warmers, which warmed my hands enough to feel excruciating pain, which was good, because that means that my hands still felt things and I could move them. So I just kept them like under my armpits and like miserably marched for the couple hours until the sun came up. But it was weird because even though we were going through the snow and the ice, the first time I tried to climb this mountain, there was no snow or ice anywhere on this part of the mountain. And there was just all these different branching paths and different things, like lots of opportunities to get lost. And I did. It took me a long time to reach the highest refuge in the world, which is the halfway mark for the summit attempts. But on the second summit attempt, there was only one path on the way up. Like, the guides knew the most efficient way to go, and they blazed that path. So I just stayed on it. And even though I was physically moving way slower, I was making way better time. Like, I made it to the halfway point, like, hours earlier than I did on my first attempt. And I was like, well, all right, it's going to work out all right. But in the climb, we, like, started outpacing the lady almost immediately. And she's like, oh, you go on ahead, don't wait for me. And we're like, yeah, you got it. Like, we can't afford a 24-hour attempt. Yeah. Like, those who fall behind get left behind. See you on the way out. And, yeah, she fell behind, and we never saw her again. So we don't know what happened to her. But she fell behind. And then, so Jim and I were pretty neck and neck until about the halfway point. And his freshness outpaced my grizzled tiredness. And he started to pull ahead. And I was like, yeah, you go, man. Like, best of luck to you. So he took off, and then I was all by me onesies, which was whatever. I don't care. Like, I knew the rules. And so I'm going, and I get right back up to the right below the cave again, the like 300-meter mark from the summit. And I'm like, yeah, here we go, about to beat my high score. Like, I can see the cave, and I'm getting up there, and then I start going, and then one of my crampons breaks off of my boot. And the crampon refresher is like the spikes that come off of your boot that let you like walk on snow and ice and loose rocks. And it just like broke off. And I was like, whoa! And then I slipped, and I started sliding down the mountain because it was just packed snow and ice. And I slid so far, so fast. I was just burning. It was adding like an hour or 2 hours to my climb time and burning up a bunch of energy. And I was like, no! And I couldn't get myself stopped. Like, I just kept sliding. And I was like, oh, what's that over there? Ah, an outcropping of jagged rocks. They'll stop me. So I aimed myself for the outcropping of jagged rocks. But it was like an episode of The Simpsons. Like, I just hit him, and I was like, it just bounced off of him and kept going. And I was like, shit. And I took my trekking pole and slammed it into the ground and managed to get myself stopped, but I broke my trekking pole. And when I hit the jagged rocks, it cracked a rib. So I got up, and I was like, all right, let's just check where we are now. Just probably about a couple hours added to the climb, a lot of energy spent, broken trekking pole, broken boot, broken rib. All right, let's go. And so then I start going back up, and I'm going, get up right where I was before, where the crampon broke, and right then, a ferocious gust of wind comes. Like, so strong. And sucks the goggles off my face, and like, out into the abyss. They're just
They're
gone.
just gone.
They're just gone. Like I was like, oh, huh. And so people listening, and maybe you right now, are thinking like, well, how did that happen? How did the goggles get sucked like right off of your face? So the goggles I had were not the kind that wrap all the way around your head. They just looped behind your ears like sunglasses, which I thought was fine. It's not. You need the kind that wrap all the way around your head. And so they just got sucked out into the abyss. And I was like, well, shit. I'm glad I have that extra pair that I left down at camp to cut down on my weight for the summit attempt. So now I don't have any glasses or goggles. So it's just like, shit. Well, I'm so close. Like, I'm like 300 meters from the top. Granted, it's the worst 300 meters of the whole climb. It's going to take several hours to get up there. But I'm so close. And I was like, I didn't come this far to turn around twice. I'm going. And I was like, yes, my eyes are exposed, but they'll only be exposed for like a couple of hours. It'll be fine. So, and then I remember thinking like, it's so hot up here. It's so hot. And I'm having trouble breathing. Even though everything's covered in snow and ice, it just felt so hot. So I was wearing a balaclava to like cover my face. I was actually wearing 2 balaclava. I was wearing a summer and a winter balaclava. And I was like, man, I can't really breathe. It's really hot. I'm going to pull these down so I can breathe. So now my face and eyes are exposed. And I'm up high enough, almost to 7,000 meters, that you're above most of the atmosphere. So nothing is filtering out the sun's radiation anymore. You're getting like raw cosmic rays. And there's so much snow and ice. It's like there's 1,000 suns reflecting at you in every direction. And I was like, it's so bright, but yeah, this is fine. So I'm going up and I'm climbing. And so then I finally get to the actual cave proper. And it's full of people. Like, it is just stuffed full of people that have been turned around. Like, what is going on here? Like, yeah, right after this, the snow and ice are packed, like, belly button deep. And people aren't getting through or over it. Like, it's just turning people around. I was like, are you serious? People are coming all the way up here and then deciding to go back? Like, no, not Nash. I'm not willingly going back. So I managed to actually, like, manually climb. And it was an ordeal. It took a long time, but I got over this huge shitstorm of snow and ice. And I made it. I was like, I'm going to do it! So I'm like an hour from the top. And then people are coming down from the summit. So we wound up passing each other. So one of them was Jim, and one of them was this other guy. And Jim's like, "Oh my god, you look terrible!" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm real tired, man. Like, my boot crampon broke, and I flew down the mountain and cracked a rib, and I've broke a trekking pole. It's been a rough go since we separated, like several hours ago." And he's like, "Jesus Christ!" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm not feeling the best right now. I'm gonna be honest." He's like, "Shit, man, your eyes." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, my goggles got sucked off. It's cool. It's cool, because, yeah, it's only been, like, a couple hours." And he's like, "Oh, my God, well, like, I've got some, like, marathon energy cubes if you want some." And I was like, "Yeah." So I gave them to him. I just ate them immediately, because I was not having a repeat of last time. Yeah, I was like, get me everything right now. Like, this could be my final push for living. Like, I need...
even unwrap it.
That's just like, oh, yeah, that's right. I need I need to eat the wrapper, too. I need as much as I can get. Do you have any extra shoelaces? I'm going to eat those. But, so he was like, "Jesus, you should go back down, man. You should really turn around. Like, you're not looking good." I was like, "I'm not turning around." And he's like, "Okay, well, be safe, I guess." And I was like, "Yeah, thanks." And then the other guy who was next to him, he comes walking by. He's like, "Oh my god, your eyes!" And I was like, "Oh yeah, my goggles got sucked off." He's like, "You can't just have your eyes, like, out willy-nilly here. Or your face." And I was like, "It's only been a couple hours. Like, I didn't start from the bottom like this." And he's like, "Oh, Jesus, man. All right, well, I've got some extra goggles in my bag. Like, I'm going to loan you these goggles. Put these on, and then just give them back to me when you get to camp." I was like, "Oh, thanks, man. Like, I really appreciate that." He's like, "Yeah, no worries. Like, good luck. You're almost there. Like, an hour away." Like, "Oh, thanks. I appreciate it." Put the goggles on, climb up. I get to the top. I do it. I summit. I summit this mountain by myself. No guide, no gear, or I had gear. No guide, no team, no support. No gear, no food. Spit in the face of the gods. Take that. Nothing keeps me down. I'm Odysseus. But yeah, I get up there, and it's really cool. There's no one else up there. There's no one else around for a very long period of time, which means that at that moment, because there's no winter expeditions in the Himalaya range, at that moment, I was the highest up person on the planet. out of 7.5 billion people plus, I was the highest up person on the planet. And it felt pretty good, man. And they normally have like an adventure. They've got like a cross up there that signifies the summit, in case you couldn't tell that you were on top of everything. They have like a cross. And underneath the cross, they normally have like an adventurer's log for people to sign that have summited it. But sometimes they take it down, or it gets like smoted off the planet in one of the storms. So when I got up there, there wasn't an adventurer's log. But they did have like a little box that you could like write a note and drop it into the box. I didn't really have anything to write on, but I did have my blog sticker, so I put it on the box. So it still counts. Still counts as me signing the adventurer's log. So I took some video footage. I tried to take footage intermittently on the way up to try to cobble together a YouTube video of me climbing this mountain. I haven't checked to see if any of the footage came out yet, but we'll see how that goes. Hopefully, I got something usable. But yeah, I took some pictures, kind of sat up there for a little bit, and I was like, well, I should get going back down before the weather changes or something stupid happens. So I started heading back down. Everything's fine. I wound up getting turned around in the snow, and I couldn't really tell where I was. So I was like, shit, I am tired. Just gonna have a sit down real quick, kind of try to catch my bearings and relax. So I just sit in this snowfield and relax. And like this ranger comes by, and he was leading a Frenchman who looked like he was dying, like legitimately, of probably exhaustion and maybe like dehydration or not enough blood sugar. And then the ranger sees me, and he's probably thinking like, oh, here comes another dead guy. And he's like, what are you doing? What's your deal? And I was like, oh, it's cool. Like, I just taking a rest, actually. I'm a little disoriented. I'm not entirely sure where I am. If you could just point me to the cave, I'll be able to get my bearings. And he's like, come with me. I was like, yeah, sure, why not? So I go with him. It turns out I was like right next to the cave. I just didn't recognize it because I was coming from the other direction, and like everything was whited out. And I was like, oh, cool. And he's like, where are you going? And I was like, oh, I'm going to the high camp. And he's like, well, that's where this guy's going. You should come with us. And I was like, well, I mean, that's where I'm going anyway, so sure, why not? And so I'm going with them, and get 5 minutes outside of the camp, and my eyes shut off. I go totally blind. Like, just blackness. Like someone just like pulled the plug on my eyeballs. And immediately I was like, shit, I am blizzard blind. Like, this is snow blindness from having my eyes exposed for that couple of hours. It happened to me once in Alaska, but it only lasted like a day. So I was like, okay, well, if I...
Still, that's a long time to
it's a long time
blind.
To be blind. But that was kind of reassuring to me, because I was like, okay, well, I'll just, I'll just go to bed tonight, and then when I wake up in the morning, I should be good to go. And, but I was just like, shit, I'm blind. So I was like, hello! And so I had to like tell this ranger that I was blind. And so, like, we're like 5 minutes away. It took me 45 minutes to get back to camp. This guy, like, led me back to camp. But everything was, like, slippery and jagged and terrifying because I was newly blind. And so I get back to camp. And then this guy is just shouting at all kinds of people in Spanish. And in Argentinian Spanish. And I have no idea what he's saying. And then a guy comes out who's, like, kind of... He doesn't really, like, run the high camp. He's not, like, in charge of anything officially. But, like, he's the unofficial guy. So he can speak English, and then he's like translating. He's like, "Hey, do you know anyone up here?" And I was like, "Not really." He's like, "Who are you with?" I was like, "I'm by myself." And he's like, "Who are you with?" And I was like, "I don't know. I'm by myself." Like, he's like, "Who do you know?" And I was like, "Oh, there's a guy called Jim. Like, I know this Jim guy. A little." And so like, "Go get Jim." So. And this guy's yelling at me, and I have no idea what he's saying. And then the other guy's like, okay, so what's going to happen is you're going to march down to the next highest camp right now, and you're going to sleep there tonight, and then in the morning, they're going to medically evacuate you because you're blind, and you're going to have to pay to have someone come up here and get all your stuff. And I was like, whoa, how much is all this going to cost? And they're like, oh, it'll be like $500 or $1,000 to get all your stuff off the mountain, and then however much the medical evac is. And I was like, no, we're not doing this. Like, I'm fine. I'll be fine if I go to sleep. And the ranger was like, I'm not just a ranger. I'm a cop. I'm an Argentinian cop. And now he's speaking English. Like, now his English is fine. And he's like, you will respect me. I am not asking you to do this. I am telling you, you're going down there. And I was like, and I'm telling you, I don't have the money, and I'll be fine. And I was like, I have a degree based in medicine. I'm a wilderness first responder. I have experience. I'll be fine. And he's like, I don't care. I'm a cop. You're going down. And I was like, Oh yeah, he's like, I don't care, and you will respect me. And I was like, I respect you, but I'm not going down. And then Jim shows up, and he was like, holy shit, are you blind? What's going on? And I'm like in the middle of fighting this cop, and the cop's like, go get his sleeping bag, he's going down. So then Jim goes into my tent, packs my sleeping bag, like hands it to me, and then I was like, shit, like he radios in the medevac, and then I was like, man, like I cannot afford this. I'm not gonna do this.
So like I don't know what a medevac costs in Argentina, but
much less than it would here.
Yeah, I mean I know just from
couple
working
thousand
insurance claims that
yeah,
if you get lifelined
right
somewhere,
yeah. It's usually like
at least 10,000.
I was gonna say like 20 to 50,000. In Argentina it's 2,000. But yeah, I was like, no, I'm not gonna do this. And he's like, you're gonna do this. And I was like, first of all, it took me 5 minutes, or it took me 45 minutes to go like 5 minutes from a thing that I could formally see. I have no idea where I'm going now, and this journey would normally take like several hours. It's gonna take me like days,
yeah.
And also it's 7 p.m. Like I'm gonna die for sure. And he's like, I am not asking you. And in my head, I was like, okay, well the only thing that's gonna like fix this is convincing this guy that I could see. So I was like, oh well, you know what? I can see now. And he was just he was like bullshit. Like he was not having it. I was like, yeah, it turns out I think it was just I had like something in my eyeballs, like sand, or they were just really dry. Totally fine now. You can go. Everything's fine. And,
they just did like, how many fingers am I holding up?
Yeah, he did actually. Here's the brilliant thing. So he's like, I don't believe you. And I was like, yeah, I can see. I'm totally fine. I can see. And so the sun was going down. It was right behind me, shining in front of me. So I opened my eyes as wide as I could and like flexed my eyeballs, and I could see blobs of blue, just like indiscriminate the color blue, like not belonging to anything. It was really weird. Like, you know how if you close your eyes and then you like smash your eyelids really hard, you see like blobs
kind of like blurring around everywhere.
That's what I was seeing. But just blue. And I had my eyes like, I was just like this. And I was like, I'm totally fine. Everything's cool. And he's like, well, how many fingers am I holding up? And the sun was like behind me, shining right on him. So just guessing, I was like, okay, I see 2 blue things. So I was like, 2. And then I like changed to like 3 and 5. And I passed. And he was so shitty. He called off the medevac and just like stormed off. And Jim was like, oh my God, like, man, I was really worried about you. I thought you were blind. And I was like, yeah, is that guy gone? He's like, yeah, he's gone. I was like, okay, because I'm super fucking blind.
I still can't see
shit. I cannot see anything. Please lead me to my tent.
But I am mildly psychic.
Yeah, it was just like, what? I was like, yeah, I'm super fucking blind.
But that's not going to help me climb down. So.
Yeah. And he was like, oh my God. He was like, I was so worried, man. You came up, you look terrible. You can't even stand. You're blind. Then you're like fighting a cop, and then this guy's screaming at me. This whole thing's really stressful. And I was like, yeah, welcome to being my friend. This is like a regular occurrence when you're my friend and we're out and about. He's like, Jesus Christ. I was like, look, trust me. All I need is to go to bed tonight. It's gonna be fine. And he's like, okay, man. So he hands me my sleeping bag. He leads me back to my tent. I go to bed. I wake up in the morning because the Argentinian guy who's unofficially in charge is like banging on my tent. And he's like, hey, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. Totally fine. And he's like, can you see? And I was like, I don't know, I'm still in bed. I haven't opened my eyes yet. And and he was like, we'll open them. And I was like, okay. So like, I try to open them, and they're like crusted shut. Like they have this like really hard crust over my eyes. So I just like force them open with this like crusty, like cutting, tearing, weeping, like I could feel the pus like coming out of my eyes. And I open them up, and I can't see shit. But my plan was to sleep the whole day to recover from the summit attempt, and then climb down the next day. So I was like, even though I can't see anything now, I'm sure I'm just tired from the climb. So I'm sure that after a 24-hour nap, I'll be good. So I was like, yeah, it's good. Everything's fine. And he's like, okay, good, because there's another blizzard coming in. We need everybody out of here right now. And then he leaves, and I was like, hello? Hello? Guy? Argentinian guy, hello? And, yeah, so I was like, shit, I am super fucking blind still. So I was like, okay, well, this might be doable, you know? I'll just try to pack up all my gear and stuff and see what we got going on. Yeah, I couldn't even get my boots on. I'm like trying to get my boots on. I was like, this is really hard. Because once again, they're those crazy like 4-layer boots where you got boots inside of boots inside of boots. And I was just like,
trying to put them on just by feel.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do. But I was like, man, this is just barely working out. So I did get my boots on, but that was it. So I was like, shit. So I wound up just like sitting in this oncoming snowstorm. I'm just like sitting down, like looking around, I guess waiting to die or waiting for like an idea, like a good Nash-Style idea. And then these two guides, these mountain guides, just happen to walk by, and they're like, hey, what you doing? And I was like, oh, I'm blind. And they're like, wow. And I was like, yeah, this isn't like a normal, like I wasn't blind when I came up here. I'm freshly blind. I don't know what I'm going to do about this. And they're like, oh, well, we're on our way to base camp. Do you want us to take you there? And I was like, yeah, that'd be great. And they were super nice because, like, that's not their job. Like, that would be the job of a ranger or a medevac guy. So they're not getting paid for doing that. But they were just like, yeah, well, we're on our way anyway. So they put one of them in front of me and one of them behind me and then, like, lashed us together. So we moved as one solid unit. So I didn't have to see. So that was pretty cool. And so it took I don't know, maybe 12 hours to get down to base camp. And they're like, hey, we're going to send, you're obviously going to have to be medevaced from base camp. And I was like, yeah, obviously. Because I won't be able to make the climb from base camp down to the base, because that's another like 18 hours of, horrific stuff. And I didn't care that I would get medevaced from base camp, because I was like, well, I already won, like I made it, so it's no big deal to get medevaced from base camp. And I had then realized that the insurance that they made me get would cover my medevac from base camp, so I was like not stressing about it at all. And since this would be like an official medevac, like the Sherpas to go get my shit would be covered. So I was like, okay, cool. So they were like, yeah, we're sending someone up to go get your stuff right now. It's going to meet us at base camp. And I was like, cool, thanks. And so we're going down. They're like, hey, we have to make a stop at the ranger station in the next camp down. And we'll get you some pain-killing eye drops. And I was like, that'd be great, because I am in a lot of pain right now. So we go there, and who should be staffing the ranger station but the cop from the night before? And
he's like, you motherfucker, I know you can't, I know you couldn't see.
So we get there, and I'm like feeling around, and they're like, okay, so this is Ranger so-and-so, and I recognize his name, and I was like, hey, how's it going? And he's like, shut up. And I was like, oh, I didn't really say anything yet. And he's like, shut up, don't talk, just shut up. And I was like, that's fair. Yeah, he was not excited to see me. But he did give me the pain-killing eye drops. And then we got down to base camp. And they took me to the medical tent. And we get in. And the doctor's like, hey, Nash, welcome back. What's going on? I was like, I'm blind now. And she's like... She's like, yeah, your guys radioed in ahead and told me that you were blind. Let's have a look. And so the doctor and her assistant were like checking me over, and she's like, yeah, you are blind. You definitely got blizzard blindness. Like you burnt your retinas. You're blind. And I was like, yep, I know that, but thank you for the confirmation. But in fact, while they were giving me the once over, they actually what I didn't realize at the time, because I was in so much pain from my eyes, was that I had actually also burnt my face off. So because of all the radiation, I pulled my balaclava down. So it's like a horrific sunburn, but because of all the reflection, not only had I burnt my face very badly, I burnt the inside of my nose, my gums, and my tongue. And my lips swelled up like microwavable sausages and then popped. Mm-hmm. And the inside of my eyelids were so burnt that the doctor had to flip my eyelids inside out and scrub them, because they were like crispy pieces of bacon that were cutting my eyeballs. So, but I didn't realize how messed up I was, because I was blind, hadn't seen myself.
And then everything just hurt anyway.
Yeah, everything just hurt, because I'd had basically back-to-back summit attempts and been above 6,000 meters for a week. It was just like, this is what people feel like, right? This is what it's normally like to be alive? I don't remember what normalness feels like. But, so she's just like, okay, we're going to put all this shit in your eyes, and then we're going to seal them closed. And I was like, yeah, you do what you got to do. So they occlude my eyes, seal them closed, and they're like, hey, you're going to need to wear your sunglasses on top of these seals, even though your eyes are sealed closed. Like, still wear your sunglasses just to filter out the radiation. And then she was like, when you're finally able to, when these come off, like, you're still going to need to wear your sunglasses even indoors at night. And I was like, oh man, indoors at night with sunglasses on? I'm going to look so cool. She was like, yeah, not likely. And so they sealed my eyes closed, and she's like, all right, we're just going to give you some medicine. And I was like, what kind of medicine? She's like, oh, it's just a punch. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, what's a shot? And I was like, yeah, I don't want that. And she's like, you really need this medicine. And I was like, no. I don't need it. She's like, you really do. Like, you're really messed up. You need this medicine. And I was like, I'm fine. I'm not taking the shot. And she's like, it's an anti-inflammatory and a painkiller, and you really need it. And I was like, look, lady, if you give me this shot, I'm going to freak out and start destroying stuff. And I'm blind now, so I won't know where my rampage is going. Like, this is going to end very badly for everyone. And she's like, what's your problem? Like, you're afraid of needles? And I was like, yeah, just like syringe needles. And she was like, what do you mean? Like, I've heard your stories. You have Superman cojones. What do you mean you're afraid of needles? Like, how are you afraid of this? You just did this amazing thing and burnt your face off. How is this the thing you're afraid of? I was like, everybody's got something, lady. I'm not taking the shots. Service declined. And she was like, fine, we have a pill, but it doesn't work. We'll give you the pill. I was like, sounds great. So she gives me the pill, and she's like, okay, we're waiting on the medevac chopper. It'll be here. We'll load you into it. When you get down to the base of the mountain, there'll be an ambulance waiting for you to take you to the hospital. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to the hospital. And she's like, you really need to go to the hospital. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And she's like, are you afraid of hospitals? And I was like, yeah, that's where people go to die. And she was like, it's going to be fine. I mean, you can't see anything. So it's like, you're not. I was like, that makes it worse that I can't see anything. And she was like, you really, really need to go to the hospital. And I was like, I'm not going to the hospital. And she's like, you really need to see like an optometrist or an ophthalmologist or some specialist for your eyes and get a general check over, because I'm not sure you realize how bad you are right now. I was like, yeah, I'm totally fine, lady. Like, I'm not going to the hospital. I was like, if there's an ambulance waiting for me when this chopper lands, I'm going to get out of this chopper and I'm going to sprint away. And she was like, to where? You're blind. And I was like, I'm just going to pick a direction and go, and whatever's in the way is going to get destroyed.
Oh, should have went back up the mountain.
Yeah. I'm going to need another medevac. I accidentally ran back up here. You just chopper me down. She was just like, oh, for God's sake, like, fine. It's my job to stabilize you and get you off the mountain. Whatever you do when you're off the mountain is your own business. And I was like, thank you. So I get on the chopper, fly down. She thankfully called off the ambulance. There wasn't even one there, I guess. Like, no one attempted to haul me away. But there was another guy who was getting medevaced with me who happened to be a Czech Republic YouTube star. And so he was getting a shuttle from the base of the mountain back to the little village town to the fancy hotel. So I was like, oh, is it cool if I, like, hop into your little shuttle? And he's like, yeah, no problem. So I take his little shuttle, and we go back to the fancy hotel, and I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to hole up here for a day. Because I can't afford to stay any longer, for one thing. And so we get there, and it's a nice, fancy place. It's staffed by Argentinians, but it's run by this English guy. And so, like, I fumble my way in and up to the front desk. And I was like, I would like a room, please. One room, please. And I guess the guy didn't see me come in. The English guy didn't see me come in, because it sounded like he turned around. And I think he was slightly startled.
Just, oh, God!
Yeah, I think he was slightly startled. The first thing he said to me, very professional, I was like, oh, excuse me, I would like a room, please. And he turns around and he's like, oh, mate, you're fucked! And I was like, yes, thank you.
That is what I've been told.
Yeah. I was like, yep, yeah. I was like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? And he's like, what happened? So I tell him, and he's like, right, first floor room for you then. And yeah, so he gave me a room. Super nice guy. He walked me, to the room, gave me the lay of the land. There was a restaurant downstairs, so he had to, like, manually walk me down the stairs. Got someone to read the menu to me. Like, he's a super nice guy, like, really accommodating. So I was there. Then the next day, I'm, like, walking around, and he's like, all right, what's your plan? And I was like, okay, well, I'm waiting for the muleteer to show up with my gear from base camp. When he shows up, I'm going to grab my gear, and then I'm going to get on a bus. I'm going to take this 3-hour bus back to the city. Then I'm going to take a taxi to the hostel, and then I'm going to hole up in that hostel till my vision comes back. And he was like, right, terrible plan. First, go to the hospital. Secondly, you can't be riding buses and taxis in your condition in Argentina. And I was like, what? He's like, you can't see your money or your gear. Like, they're just going to take all your shit immediately. And I was like, oh, yeah. And he's like, look, man, I'm just going to call someone to come pick you up to, like, drive you to the city. And that's what he did. Like, because, like, you know, I mentioned that everyone uses it, all the expeditions use it as a base before they climb. And so there's a lot of, like, guides and stuff running back and forth from the city. And, yeah, he just called him. He's like, yeah, I got this guy. He's fucked. Like, he doesn't need to be riding buses and taxis in his condition. Take him to town. And they did. Real nice. Except when we got to town, they wouldn't take me to the hostel. It just dropped me in the middle of a downtown street in the middle of the night, and like all my shit was now in like huge burlap bags because they didn't know how it was sorted. So like the muleteers just loaded everything into big burlap bags, and I had like 3 giant ass burlap bags, and I'm just standing in like downtown Mendoza, Argentina. So I had to take a taxi anyway, but thankfully someone else was like, "This is your money, you're good," and so I didn't get taken advantage of. I couldn't have because I didn't have that much money to begin with, so who cares? But I did make it back to the hostel, and they were fumigating my room for bed bugs again. So I got moved to a different room, and then over the course of a few days, my vision started to come back. About 5 days in, I could see about 3 feet in front of my face, but I had no depth perception. So everything looked like it was equally far away, which was really terrifying when you're stepping off of a curb because you don't know, or like crossing what might be a ditch because you don't know if it's like a cavernous ravine or like nothing. Like it was really weird. It was like walking around an MC Escher painting. Like it was like the most lucid trip.
You don't know if it's a 3-inch drop or a 3-foot drop.
Yeah, it was really crazy. Like I could obviously tell how far away people were based on their size. Like I figure most people aren't like 3 feet tall with regular proportions. So it's like, okay, well, this person's probably pretty far away. But it was like looking at paintings of stuff, like really realistic paintings, but everything's like 2-dimensional, you know? Like it's like false 3D. It's just stuff for scale, but it's still flat. It was a really weird, like going up and down stairs was also terrifying. But yeah, it's a really weird thing. But because of the guy who ran the hotel and the guy who dropped me off and everything, like the medevac people knew where I was. So they were like, hey, you need to come in for a meeting about paying us for this medevac. And I was like, sure. So I go to the place, and they're like, okay, well, you owe us like thousands of dollars for this medical evacuation. And I was like, right, well, I don't have any money, but I do have that insurance you made me get. So if you want some money, go ahead and give them a call. And they were like, okay, well, how it normally works is you pay us, and then you call the insurance, and the insurance reimburses you.
So like traveler's insurance.
Yeah, and I was like, well, how it's gonna work is I don't have any money, and I'm already off the mountain, so if you want money, you call them. And then they called my bluff, and they were like, we'll call them right now. So they called them, and they put us on like a 3-way call, so they like gave me a phone, they had a phone, and then the insurance company was on the line. And so I explained the situation. And they're like, what mountain were you just medevaced from? And I was like, Aconcagua. They're like, oh, yeah, we just pulled 24 people off that mountain last month. They're like, we know it well. And I was like, okay, well, you know, they want some money for this medevac. And they were like, okay, well, how it normally works is you pay them, and then we'll reimburse you. And I was like, well, how it's going to work is I don't have any money.
So how about you just pay them directly?
Yeah, I was like, how about you just pay them directly? And they're like, okay, well, it's not usually how we do it, but we can do it that way. If you just have them send us an invoice, like, we will pay them. And I was like, cool. So, like, they're on the line. Like, the insurance people are on the line. These people are on the line. I'm on the line. We're all, like, thumbs up. We all understand the situation. And so the guy was like, okay, well, like, do you have like, a phone I could call you back at? And I was like, no. He's like, well, do you have access to, like, a computer? And I was like, no. And he's like, okay, well, I mean, I guess we don't need you anymore because this is, like, they're going to send us an invoice and, like, we'll pay it. So, I mean, I guess, is it cool if I just close your file? And I was like, yeah, go ahead and close it. Like, just so we're clear, I'm removing myself from this situation. This is now between you and the Argentinian government. This has nothing to do with me anymore. And the guy's like, yeah, just know that because you're now removed from the situation, if someone asks you for money and you pay them money, we cannot reimburse you, so don't pay anyone anything. And I was like, yeah, I'm way ahead of you. I'm way ahead of you. I'm not paying anyone anything. And he's like, okay, well, I guess this is just between us now. And I was like, yeah, it is. It's just between you guys. So I hung up the phone. I'm like, all right, it's all good. They're like, okay, we're going to send them an invoice. And I was like, all right, cool. And then they were like, you have 5 days to get us this money. And I was like, okay. So, like, a couple days later, I just left Argentina.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I don't give a shit about you. You're going to give me 5 days? It was 5 business days, which was technically 9 days. Because there was a 1 day leeway. The day that it was didn't count. Then I had 5 regular days plus the weekend and something else. Like another, whatever. It came out to like 8 or 9 days. But, yeah, so once the day that my vision was good enough, I left Argentina. Like, before my time limit was up. But I was like, whatever, like, they're going to give me a 5-day time limit to give the Argentinian government thousands of dollars. Plus, this doesn't concern me anymore. So yeah, I left the country, and then a lot of stuff happened between the time that I left Argentina and came back here. I was in like 7 other countries, which we'll talk about next week. But I did just recently receive an email from Argentina, and they were like, hey, we never got our money, so how do you want to handle this? And in my head, I was like, well, I'm healed up, out of the country, off the continent, and I have my stuff, so I'm considering it handled. Like, this doesn't concern me.
In the insurance company, wasn't that the one that say, like, don't give people any money?
Exactly. So, best case scenario.
Yeah, like, I'd just be telling them, hey, contact these people.
Exactly, yeah.
That's who you need to deal with.
I just didn't even write them back. I was like, no response is a response. Do not engage. But, like, on the one hand, you could be like, okay, well, they never got their money. So they're legitimately wondering where their money is, which doesn't concern me. That's the insurance and the government. I'm not a part of that. Or they did get their money, and they're trying to get more money, in which case I'm just like, well, I was told not to pay anyone anything, so sorry, I'm just following orders.
Okay,
but
now that you've paid us this money, we need $20 to convert.
That's, yeah, like, we need a $20 conversion fee. But let me see here. Yeah, so anyway, I healed up. I grew a brand new face. So this is a new face because the old one kind of like peeled off, and I met some really attractive ladies on the road, but I don't blame them for not wanting to.
Because you looked like you were a leper.
Yeah, I actually, you know what I looked like? I looked like a honey baked ham wearing waxed lips. That's what I looked like. If you could have, like, I had like the checkerboard like pattern on my. I looked like a honey baked ham wearing waxed lips. I looked like a Jack Sparrow wig was dressed up for Halloween as Deadpool, and not the other way around. Like, not Deadpool wearing a Rasta wig. I looked like a Rasta wig dressed up as Deadpool. But yeah, let me see if I missed any terrible things. Nope, that's everything. That's everything that went wrong. So just a quick review of the things that went wrong here. So soloing Aconcagua, Nash versus Aconcagua. We got no guide, no support. No team. So what went wrong? The TSA broke one of my bags, tore the other bag, stole most of my rations and my repair tool. Some pox rendered me deaf and mute when I got to Argentina. Permit office ripped me off for an extra $40. Tried to get my gear sorted, but the hostel was fumigating for bed bugs, so I couldn't sort my gear, and it all wound up just in a pile, and I just had to grab it and go. I messed up my mule order, so I had to ruck over 70 pounds, like 18 hours over the course of 2 days to base camp. Almost killed me. Ran out of food twice. Had to buy 3 packs of top ramen and a bag of cookies for like $25. 300 meters from the summit, an extreme lightning blizzard caused me to turn back. Failed my hand warmers and gloves and tent. Blizzard destroyed most of my $1,000 tent, filling it with snow and ice while I was inside of it. My crampon broke, causing me to fall and go sliding down the mountain, breaking part of my trekking pole. Adding hours to my summit attempt, wasting energy, cracked a rib. Strong wind sucked the glasses off my face into the abyss. I became completely blind for a week from a couple hours of exposure. Got in a fight with an Argentinian cop. Forcefully medevaced off the mountain. Had burns on the inside of my eyelids, my gums, the inside of my nose. And my face was burnt badly. My eyelids were flipped inside out and scrubbed because they were so burnt like bacon. Ran from going to the hospital. Shuttle refused to take me back to the hostel, so I had to take a cab while I was blind. Got back and they were fumigating my room for bed bugs again. Oh, then I got devoured by bed bugs anyway. Forgot to mention that. In my new room, before I left Argentina, I got devoured by bed bugs anyway, and so my arms and legs wound up looking like my face. So my whole body matched, which was something. And then on the way out, you know, I had to flee Argentina because they gave me 5 days to give them thousands of dollars, which I didn't have and wasn't going to give them. So I have to add Argentina to the list of places I can't go back to, at least not for a while. And then on the way out, my $1,000 tent got stolen off the bus. But joke's on them because it was just a destroyed mess of...
Anyway.
Yeah, it was a completely destroyed mess of broken zippers and shit anyway. So it was mostly just ripped up canvas with zippers hanging off of it. So that is the list of things that went wrong during this particular climb. But I made it! And
So all in all, pretty par for the course.
Par for the course, yeah. I met a guy from the Netherlands who was like, man, I have never met anyone who can make any decision and have it turn out crappy. And I was like, yeah, like we went to go get on a bus and we were like picking our bus seats. I just picked a seat at random and it was the only broken bus seat on the bus. And it was just shit like that all the time. And me and this guy hung out for like 3 days. And every time I did anything, it was like the worst shit that would happen to me. And he just found it to be hilarious. And yeah, so he kept tabs on me while I was traveling through South America. And yeah, that trend continues because that's been my whole life. So it's pretty funny from a certain point of view. So a classical kind of comedy, the Greek comedy where misery is funny because that's what you know. So yeah, par for the course. So that was me. But I did summit it, and I did sustain no permanent injuries, and I managed to avoid going to a Patagonian jail because they haven't caught me. So I'd call it a win. Wouldn't you guys call it a win? I'm calling it a win.
Yeah, it's doubtful they would extradite.
Yeah, definitely not. They can't be bothered. They would lose.
It would cost them more than what they would get.
Or they would break even. They just do it to spite me. But then somebody here would have to catch me, and I'm already like on my way out again. So
yeah.
So good. So anyway, this has been an extremely long episode, but it's a really long story.
It's a long, harrowing adventure.
That's right. My tales of daring do. My Nash-Style life of swashbuckling, barely getting by, and winding up exactly where I left off. So now I have none of the gear that I invested in. But I did not die, so I'm still calling it a win. I still have my sleeping bag, though. Yeah, I don't have the tent or the gloves or any of the other crap, but I still have my sleeping bag, so... And I'm alive. And I saved, debatably, a ton of money still, even on top of the gear and the permit and everything, than I would have if I took a guided expedition. Plus, if we look at an Egyptian-Canadian guy, there's no guarantee you're going to summit, even if you pay that $6,000. So, I'd say I'm better off. Better off all by me onesies. So I'm calling it a win. Any final comments before we end this episode? Questions?
That was a crazy story, man.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
There are like multiple points during that I'm like, you know what? If I was probably in that same situation, I probably would have been like, fuck it.
No, the whole thing.
No, I was with you the first time you got to like the cave, and you're like, no, I'm not turning back. Like I would have been the same way.
Yeah.
But then like, you know, after the second time, you're like, you know what? Maybe it's just not meant to be.
No one tells me what's meant to be. There's no fate but what we make. The future is not set. I learned that from Terminator. The documentary Terminator 2.
Yes.
So yeah, I guess that's it. Any further comments or questions? Looks like no. All right. Well, that's this episode of the National Pastime.
I'm Aaron,
and I'm Nash. Nash out. Nash. Whoa! Welcome back to the National Pastime. Are you gonna put your cigarette out? He's Aaron. Now you have to introduce me because I did your thing.
He's.
I'll edit that out. You can't call me by that on the fucking radio.
This is Nash.
I got people out to get me. All right, let's start.
That's totally unrelated.
You're like, I'll tell you what. If one of his social security numbers isn't these 14 digits or whatever. All right.
Social security definitely doesn't end in.